Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I'm Dan Garodnick, Chair of the City Planning Commission and Director of the Department of City Planning. Welcome to today's review session of the City Planning Commission. Today's date is Monday, November 27. We are joined today by Commissioners Knuckles, Benjamin, Bozorg, Cerullo, Crowell, Dweck, Gold, Goodrich, Kermani, Marine, Osorio, and Rampersad. In other words, the whole gang is here. We're delighted everybody's here in the room. Hope everybody had a relaxing and joyous Thanksgiving holiday. And of course, that you supported your local shops on Small Business Saturday. Our mom and pops are the cornerstone of New York City's economy and are what makes our neighborhoods enticing and vibrant to residents and visitors alike. But despite their importance, many small business owners are too often saddled with outdated zoning rules that restrain growth, entrepreneurship, and innovation. And that's where our City of Yes for Economic Opportunity comes in. Through this initiative, we will make sure our zoning is no longer a barrier and instead contributes to our city's ongoing economic growth. Small businesses will benefit from changes that would allow many more types of stores in our neighborhoods, allow small-scale clean production businesses to locate in commercial areas for the first time, allow a wider range of home businesses, and much more. With these changes, we will help to guarantee many more successful Small Business Saturdays for years to come, and I will note this proposal is now pending before community boards and borough presidents. We look forward to their recommendations. On to today's agenda. We're going to start with a presentation and referral of a citywide gaming facility text amendment. As many of you probably know, the state of New York has requested proposals for new commercial casinos and will be granting up to 3 licenses in the downstate region. However, today, gaming facilities, racetracks, and casinos are not a permitted use under the zoning resolution. While these facilities have the potential to bring jobs and economic opportunities to New York City, applicants within New York City are at a disadvantage because currently there is no land use or zoning mechanism to properly review their siting. To resolve this issue, this application would add to the zoning resolution an allowance of up to 3 gaming facilities as a permitted use in select commercial and manufacturing districts. This will create a path in zoning for the consideration of a gaming facility within the city's limits. But let me be clear, this application will not immediately allow the development of casinos in New York City. Instead, it would allow a gaming facility licensed by the state and chosen through a new state-defined siting process to be developed without any potential conflicts with zoning. The state process is thorough and includes the required approval of each application by a separate 6-person community advisory committee, which includes local elected officials. Advancing this text amendment allows us to consider casino regulations at the city level without unnecessarily duplicating the state's CAC, Community Advisory Committee process, which includes representatives from the mayor, borough president, and local council member for each applicant. What we are proposing will create an even playing field for these facilities as they make their case for the economic benefits they aim to bring to New York City. Next, we will hear about the Kingsborough Psychiatric Center General Project Plan by the Empire State Development Corporation, located at 681 Clarkson Avenue in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. This 100% income-restricted development would contain over 1,000 new homes, including supportive and senior housing. Part of New York's vital Brooklyn initiative to improve health in central Brooklyn, the site would also feature social services space, an emergency food provider, a grocery store, an 1199 SEIU facility, and a ballet studio. The public would also have access to 2 new acres of open space with a sports and recreation lawn, a local garden, a children's play area, and more. We're being asked to provide our recommendations to the state on this general project plan by December the 30th. We will next hear about an application by the Department of Finance to acquire space for active storage and transportation of records and repair and refurbishment of furniture at 850 3rd Avenue in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. The site would be occupied by a half dozen city employees. Moving to the Bronx, we'll look at another city proposal, this one by the Department of Housing, Preservation, and Development, known as the East Tremont Cluster. This plan would lead to the construction of over 60 income-restricted homes, including 20 units exclusively for seniors, across 3 buildings in that Bronx neighborhood. Tenants would have fantastic access to open space, living near Crotona Park, Walter Gladwin Park, and several playgrounds. We also have one more HPD project before us today to construct 3 buildings in the Bronx, containing a total of over 70 income-restricted homes, including for seniors and the formerly homeless. These sites, known as Melrose Concourse, are close to Claremont Park and several bus lines. We're also going to hear about the City Council's modifications for City of Yes for carbon neutrality, the Department of City Planning's initiative to help our city go green through NYC Go Green by making it easier to install solar panels, energy-efficient building retrofits, electric vehicle charging, and much, much more. We will discuss their small changes related to accessory uses and ultra-low energy buildings. So that's the agenda for today. With that, Sarah, let's get started.
Good afternoon and welcome to the City Planning Commission review session for Monday, November 27, 2023. The time is 1:13 p.m. and a quorum is present. The first item on our agenda is a non-ULURP referral of a citywide zoning text amendment. Our presenter is Stephen Johnson.
Good afternoon, Stephen.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The New York City Department of City Planning is proposing a citywide zoning text amendment to Section 3210 and Section 4210 of the zoning resolution to allow gaming facilities as a permitted use in certain commercial districts, C4 through C8, and M1, M2, and M3 manufacturing districts. Gaming facilities are not currently legally permitted in the city. The term gaming facility is a state-defined term, which means the premises approved under a state gaming license, which includes a gaming area and any other non-gaming structures related to the gaming use, and may include things like hotels, eating and drinking establishments, or other amenities. So a gaming facility is a broader term that encompasses more than just a casino or a racetrack and includes an entire facility with the other non-gaming uses. So this text amendment would facilitate the development and operation of up to 3 gaming facilities in New York City, as approved and licensed through a recent state-defined process, and the proposed text would deem the gaming facility allowed under the zoning resolution. So the text amendment is a result of a January 2023 announcement by New York State to solicit proposals for up to 3 casino licenses. This entire process was kicked off statewide with a statewide referendum in 2013 that was approved by the voters of New York that authorized up to 7 commercial casino licenses. The first 4 licenses were awarded to areas in upstate New York and had the goal of encouraging tourism, creating jobs, increasing revenue for schools, and lowering property taxes. Now, the New York Gaming Facility Location Board, which is the entity that is overseeing the application and licensing process, made an announcement in January that included a request for applications to develop and operate a gaming facility for the remaining 3 licenses, which are focused in the downstate region, which includes New York City, Long Island, Westchester, Putnam, and Rockland counties. They also established a new citing and review process for these 3 licenses, which I will describe in a moment. But to wrap up this slide with discussion on gambling in New York City. So while gaming facilities, casinos, and racetracks are not currently legally permitted in the city, we do have one racino, which is the Aqueduct Racetrack, and the Resorts World New York City location in South Ozone Park, Queens. Now, Resorts World has automated tables and games and video lottery, while Aqueduct is a thoroughbred race track for horses, and that began back in 1894. Both of these facilities are located on state-owned property and are not subject to local zoning regulations. Off-track betting was originally established in the state in 1970 and created 6 regional OTB corporations to oversee betting on horse races at off-site, off-track locations. The New York City OTB subsequently folded in 2010. So this is a map of the various gaming and horse racing activity in the state. And this is what the Gaming Commission oversees, the New York State Gaming Commission. And that included with that, as you can see in the lower left-hand corner, is Indian gaming, which is their term. But in the lower right, or in the center of the slide, you can see an orange R and a purple, an orange 1 and a purple 1, which represents Aqueduct and Resorts World in Queens. The orange 2 is the Belmont Racetrack in Elmont, Nassau, and the red 1 is a video lottery site and hotel in Suffolk. And the green 5 is the Yonkers Raceway and Empire City Casino, which is also a fully automated gaming facility with a harness horse racing track. So as I mentioned in the previous slide, the January 2023 request for applications outlined a process to review applications for these 3 casino licenses, which includes the new siting and review criteria. So the initial review process is in the form of a local community advisory committee, or a CAC, which reviews and approves pertaining to each individual application. So each proposed gaming facility application will have a dedicated public review and open meetings process that is led by the Community Advisory Committee, and that will consist of these 6 members that are listed on the slide: the governor, a rep from the governor, the mayor, state senator, state assembly member, the BP, and the local council member. So gaming facility proposals will then submit detailed applications to be reviewed by the CAC, which will then hold public hearings and issue a finding establishing public support either for approving or disapproving the application by a 2/3 vote. Any applications approved with public support by the CAC will then be forwarded to the Gaming Facilities Location Board to review and to also ensure that they comply with all local zoning requirements. And that's the key element to the department's citywide text amendment, in that for any gaming facility application to proceed in the state process, they have to be deemed compliant with all local zoning requirements. And that is the purpose of the proposed text amendment. So the location board would then review these gaming applications based on the following criteria: revenue impacts and economic activity, local siting impacts, workforce enhancement, and diversity framework. The board may then select up to 3 applications for licenses and forward those applications to the Gaming Commission to make the final licensing determination. Those applications that may be approved by the Gaming Commission via the Location Board and the CAC's process will then be deemed as allowed under the zoning resolution as proposed in this text amendment. The New York State Gaming Location Board is expected to issue more details about the CAC process in the upcoming months, as well as a more coherent schedule as to what's to come and what to expect and dates. So here's the proposed text amendment. So the purpose of the proposed text is to facilitate the state's current casino proposal as enacted by the state legislature in 2022. And to do this, we are proposing to add the gaming facility use into the New York City zoning resolution for the first time as a use group 8, which is primarily amusements, theaters, and service establishments like bowling alleys, theaters, and auto shops. This will then enable the department to move as quickly and as efficiently as possible without having to go through an entire ULURP and environmental review process for each application. So the proposed gaming facility use is limited to C4 through C8 and M1, 2, and 3 districts. The first bullet up there states that the amendment is only for a casino license as approved by the state related to the 2022 state budget, which is just the 3 licenses. The second bullet notes that the gaming facility may include other non-gaming uses, as I mentioned earlier, such as hotels, restaurants. And the third bullet highlights the Gaming Commission approval for a facility will be deemed as complying with the zoning resolution. So the text amendment only applies to a gaming facility license approved by the state during this particular state-approved process and does not apply to any future gaming licenses that the state legislature may approve in the future. It's just for up to these 3 licenses now. The text amendment does not apply to any future modifications to a gaming facility site that has been approved. So, for example, if one of them is approved and goes through the entire process, gets the license, and then 5 years down the road they decide they want 500 more parking spaces, that is not approved during this process. They would have to come back to the city to get an action for the parking spaces. So here are the different sites that we have. There are 9 current proposals. 5 are in Manhattan, in Midtown, in districts 4, 5, and 6. 1 is in the Bronx, in Community District 10, at the Ferry Point Park and Golf Course. 2 are in Queens, at Willets Point and at Aqueduct, and 1 is in Brooklyn, in Coney Island, which you can see at the bottom of the slide there. So one other detail is that anywhere from 3 to 5 of these proposals will have additional actions at the department that are outside of the proposed citywide text amendment. An example of that is the Queens Future Project. This is the one that's number 7 on the slide. They just announced on November 21st a scoping hearing for December related to the demapping of city property, the alienation of parkland, and any dispo of city property. These are necessary just to get an applicant to the place where the CAC and the Gaming Facility Location Board can review the application. So in summary, the department is proposing the citywide text amendment for gaming facility use group 8, in particular, commercial manufacturing districts. The licenses will be limited to those approved by the state and may include other non-gaming uses or amenities, and an approval by the Gaming Commission shall be deemed to have satisfied all applicable regulations of the zoning resolution, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Stephen, and thank you for your work in getting us to today. I know there are questions from commissioners, and I will get to everybody. Let me just start with one point of clarification. You said it already, but I want to make sure that it is clear. Absent the text amendment here, we would need to process individual ULURP applications and environmental review for each of the, you cited 9 New York City proposed licenses today, even though a fraction of them would be selected. So we'd process 9, and then maybe one of them would be selected, or 3 of them would be selected, or whatever. Is that correct? That's
correct, but there's still nothing in the zoning resolution related to the use group. So there's no gaming facility use anyway. So depending on the application, there would have to be something associated in order to put that into the ZR. But we would have to go through 9 applications and go through the environmental review, and that takes, a long time to get through those. And that's looking at the envelopes and the design of each building and having a public review process, and that in some sense has been relayed over to the Community Advisory Committee, which is having their own public review process for each application. Well,
and there surely would be a question about the adequacy of the CAC to be able to address all the various things that we might see in an individual ULURP application. Can you say a little bit about that and why that would be adequate local protection to address questions like design and all of the other things that one might want to address through ULURP?
Sure. So, so the state laid out this process, signing process and review process, and by using the local city council member who has to answer to the local constituents, as well as the local state assembly member, the state senator, the BP, we think that, and the mayor has a person on the CAC also. We think that's a good way to have a public review that's answerable to the politicians in the area who have to answer to the community that they work in. And a number of them have already made public statements about the idea of a casino or a gaming facility. So it's more of an open process, more out in the open, and we think it's a way that we can get through these applications as efficiently as possible.
And to make it through the CAC with the appointments, governor, mayor, senator, assembly member, borough president, council member, you need a 2/3 vote to be able to proceed. Is that correct?
Correct. That's right.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Dweck, followed by Commissioner Benjamin.
Thank you. Just to clarify, every use group 8 would now include the ability for a gaming facility?
No. So we added the gaming facility to use group 8. So it's a particular use amongst all the other uses in use group 8. But we're saying it's permitted in the C4 through C8 and the M1, M2, M3 districts. So it's a permitted use in those districts.
Right. So if the if the commission approved, if the, gaming commission approved the site, any use group A automatically qualifies for the potential to have a casino.
It potentially does, but there is no license available.
Correct. No,
Right.
right.
And then if there is a license so if they go through the whole process again, have a state referendum,
Right.
voters approve
So-
it, and New York City decides they want to be in the game again, then we'd have to do a text amendment to add these new uses in, because it's only tied to these three that are available.
So,
It's not a generalized permission.
It's explicit that it's only tied to these three available licenses.
but my question is, it could be in the future if the state decided to add more than three downstate. We would not have to do another text amendment.
We would.
We would have to do
Yes.
another text amendment.
We would have to do a new text amendment to accept those particular casinos and whatever that
So
process
the use
is.
group A text amendment is specific to only the locations that are mentioned right now.
Because those are the only proposals that are out. So it's, if you go back to the map here, let's see where so the map, it's a little bit hard to see on this screen, but the yellow color and the dark color is the C4 through C8 and the M1, M2, M3 districts. So those would be the only locations available. And in addition to that, those 9 proposals are the only ones that are out there. And in addition to that, they have to be approved. There's also other proposals outside of the city, right? So there's one in Suffolk, there's Yonkers, I don't know if there's any other. But everything is kind of narrowing and narrowing it down. And then each one of those applications has to be approved through the CAC.
Okay, thank you. And my next question comes to the hotel use.
Mm-hmm.
So this action would supersede a hotel special permit.
That's correct. It's a related use to the casino or whatever the facility is, the gaming facility. And we've seen that a number of these proposals have a hotel associated.
Is
with
there a
the development.
size restriction on the hotel? Is there a percentage of use that has to be for the casino versus the hotel?
No, there isn't. That'll be decided through the CAC process. There are a couple of the proposals are in already developed buildings. So they're changing the use inside the building.
So now, back to the CAC. So I understand the mayor would have his ex officio and the governor would have his ex officio, but the CAC composition would change based on the location.
That's right.
So the borough president would be,
That's right.
so it's not one uniform body that is deciding it, it's a dynamic.
That's correct. So because there's two,
Leadership of the area where it's being developed.
that's right. So for example, Community Board 4 has 2, Community Board 5 has 2 proposals. So that would be roughly the same group of people, I think, reviewing those 2
Right.
applications. But they wouldn't be commenting on what's happening in Coney Island or Queens, except for the mayor's pick might and the governor's pick might.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Benjamin?
I have a number of questions and some confusion. The first question is, normally speaking, when we have a department of building, they mention which one is what, and we go from there. Why not? Doesn't the Department of Building just say, a gaming facility is like a racetrack, and so we're gonna look at it that way?
Well, we've included it in use group 8 related to the
Understand that, but
entertainment.
why not have the Department of Buildings instead of this somewhat unusual zoning amendment? Why not just do it?
Because I think that would be more unusual. So we control the ZR. So once we get the use in the ZR, it's explicit and it's known what it is. If we leave it up to Department of Buildings,
See, that's my problem, it's not explicit. When you say, and accessory uses, as my colleague brought up, the hotel could be any size. There's nothing that says the people who are staying in the hotel have to be gaming at the casino. It'd just be a regular hotel, which would not be permitted without a special permit in the M zones. So we are allowing things that would not be permitted without any city planning review, oversight, determination. And we're also allowing uses we haven't even thought of. For instance, I know of a case in California where one of the things that's done on, it's a Native American casino, they make chips. It's a manufacturing use, and it's not a pleasant one. So if the proposal involved making chips, that would just be allowed because it's ancillary to the activity.
I'm not sure what you mean by making chips, but if it's a related use, we're thinking of theaters, some, have.
Making chips for a casino.
Gaming chips.
Okay, so, you know, I don't know if they want to make chips, but I'm sure they can buy them. They can get them however they want to get them. But the idea here is any related use to the casino, which we're focusing on hotels, eating and drinking. We have a couple that are proposing some sort of theater or amphitheater space. Those are the types of things, parking.
What you're thinking of, but I'm thinking of all of the unintended consequences or things that could sneak under the tent, because as long as somebody, not us, decides it's ancillary or accessory, and that's not really defined either. It says could be hotel or anything else, basically. And so is there any way that we can limit that?
So it's our understanding that Department of City Planning will be active within, maybe not on the CAC, but will be participating in the process, and will be in discussions with the council member and the mayor's rep and all these officials. So the one thing the commissioners will be involved with is the applications that are outside of the citywide text amendment. So, for example, the example I used was the Queens project. So they'll be here to discuss.
I'll be getting to those two, but I don't want to, I'll just ask a couple more questions and then I'll wait for round two.
Wait.
I think you're going to answer the question.
Wait, Gail, you'll go next. I'll put you on, Commissioner. Go ahead, Gail. Keep going. I'll put you on, Commissioner.
Sure.
I just want to add one thing on the gaming facility question. Gaming facility is actually defined by the state statute that sets up this whole process. And, you know, the way we read it and our understanding of how the state would read it, and also our understanding of all the proposals, it doesn't include like manufacturing type things. It includes, and the state statute has a definition of it, which, you know, we can provide to you. But our text proposal is intended to only allow that which the state allows as a gaming facility under the gaming facility law. So I don't think, we don't think that something like chip manufacturing would be allowed.
Why?
Because it doesn't fit within the state statutory definition as we read it.
Wait, are you finished?
No?
Thank you.
I'll ask
Yeah,
one more, and then, how was the neg deck, since we don't know what these facilities, for a number of them, will look like, we don't know, how is the neg deck determined?
So this application, this gaming facility text was originally included within the ZEO project, and then it was parsed out as a standalone project. So along with that negative declaration, that was related to the ZEO process, and it was reviewed under ZEO. But for each facility that's approved, the state environmental review process will kick in to review the process and the environmental impacts.
You can understand why I would be troubled, that I'm voting that these won't have environmental impacts, significant adverse environment, even though I don't have any information that that's the case.
The process has been established through the state, and they have the environmental review for each of these applications.
But that's why I'm asking, why come to us at all? Why not just have buildings do it, and then we're not placed in the position of approving something that we don't really know what it is, what it could result in?
Right.
Okay. I'd like a round two, though.
Okay, let's go next to Commissioner Gold.
So A couple of points of clarification, just to be sure, I guess I'm understanding it. So first, it looks like, or I won't tell you what I see, but I guess I'll answer the question. When we think about where we are in the process, right, it looks like, I guess, it was a few weeks ago that, quote unquote, the second set of questions came up for the 9 applicants. Are we far enough along in the process to know that these are the only 9 applicants that we're going to have? Like, in other words, have we passed, because it didn't look like the process is, quote unquote, opened. And I just want to be sure that the ones that it feels like we're catering to the 9 that are there by opening this up, and, could there be others? Or
Hypothetically, there could be others, but each of the 9 applicants have come to us because they want to make sure that there's no other actions that are needed, like the other 3 to 5 projects that require actions. So if they come to us and they're like, well, actually, you can't do that because you have another action, and then they do that mid-next year, it'll be too late. The other issue is that a lot of these teams, gambling facility teams, are going out and doing outreach. So they're coming to us explaining what their proposal is and how they're proposing to do it, and get our feedback on, how it fits into an existing building, how it exists in a parkland, how it exists in a new development site, all those details that a lot of our people are expert at. So it would be it would be a bad call for them to wait and then come up with a proposal at the very end, because it could go wrong very easily.
Right.
It's a difficult enough process with waiting too long.
Got it. So we feel that we're, I think I turned it on. We feel that we're far enough along where chances are, if there were others out there, we probably would know about it already.
Yeah, I think so. A couple have actually bowed out. There's a couple proposals that they're like, we can't pursue it. So.
Got it. And then there's at least one that I guess has made a number of headlines on, some controversy on being able to figure out parking or not. Does this effectively, just so I understand, does this put all of that in the hands of the CAC at the end of the day? Like, in other words, they have to satisfy, if this goes through, they satisfy the CAC that they have ample parking, and that's, sort of, that's the mark. Or... Yeah,
that's correct. So it's, there are different localities and neighborhoods, and some prefer parking, or they like to have parking, and a couple of proposals are a little bit isolated. And then Manhattan is Manhattan with the core. So we think that it'd be better left to the CACs and the communities to decide if the parking that is being proposed is sufficient.
Got it. Okay, and then I couldn't tell on one of the dots, I think it was the Brooklyn one, but all of 9 locations then are in either the Cs or the Ms that we're looking to, basically we're looking to accommodate. I feel like from a million miles away, the way to put it is we really don't want to disadvantage these 9 applicants, because these are the ones who, sort of have come forward, because it would be, sort of a difficult circle if the CAC or the gaming commission came forward and said, well, it's technically not legal there. So, I mean, is that a fair way to think about it?
Yes, that's a fair way to think about it. And I think they're all in commercial districts at the moment. So that's the idea, is that they're all being commercial districts. All
right, so one more question just on that. If they're all commercial, why put the manufacturing in there?
Because it's for consistency with the zoning resolution. So the use group 8 uses are also permitted in M districts a lot of the time, and that's the case for these. So we also included the M districts in the text amendment.
Got it. But I guess if I'm understanding it correctly, really this text amendment is really specific to this round, if you will.
That's right.
So the M portion of it is basically, it almost doesn't matter, right? I mean, if we have 9 that are in the Cs, unless one comes out of the woodwork that's in the Ms.
That's correct.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Chair Knuckles?
Stephen, I know this is a state-driven process, but do you have an idea of what the approximate timeframes are around decision-making? When is this going to come to fruition in terms of the decision-making?
We don't. We think it's going to be soon. We've been in discussions with a number of people in the state, and they're making decisions soon about it, I think. And we're thinking that, our goal is to get this through by the end of the year, or a little bit after the end of the year, but we haven't gotten any hard deadlines or set schedule from them yet. But we've been in discussions with them, telling them about what the application timelines are, and the 3 or 4 proposals that do have actions at the city. and when those could be being certified through the commission.
So the 4 that have, actions pending before the department?
Yes.
Okay.
The example I gave was the one at, Willets Point.
Right.
That's on parkland. So
Right.
they need to do a number of actions, ahead of the text amendment or after the text amendment to be, okay with the zoning and have their site okay once they get to the state process.
Okay. So this amendment doesn't cure those other 3?
That's right. 2 of them are parkland related. One of them is, in the Coney Island. They have some things that they're looking to do there. So there's things that are outside of the text amendment that we're looking at right now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Commissioner Osorio?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much for the presentation and addressing our questions. A lot of my questions have been already raised by Commissioners Benjamin and Gold, but I wanted to ask a couple things. One is just for clarification and understanding. This is a street-driven process and so forth. The CAC doesn't include any form of direct community engagement, right? I mean, the electeds are basically there. Is there a requirement for a hearing or any opportunities for the public to weigh in directly on this?
Yeah, they're subject to the open meetings law, and they're supposed to have public meetings, and everything is supposed to be open and above board for the CACs. So I think, and to highlight that, as you may be aware, a number of politicians, officials have come out against certain types of facilities. So I'm sure they're going to want everything to be public too. So I think, everything is supposed to be open and have a public review process, and that's contained within the CACs.
But there's no specific role for the community boards or something like that?
There's not a specific community board member on the CAC.
But what you said is that some of the electeds may actually have a hearing or should have a hearing.
No, they have to have.
They have a hearing, and that's our opportunity for engagement.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So if we didn't do this, the CPC would have been another opportunity for that type of engagement, correct? And we would have followed the 197AC process for that, or what would be the community engagement requirements if we didn't do this?
If we did it, so it'd be like a regular, very strenuous ULER process. So it would be like, so if you take one of the projects and they have to do a zoning district, because we have to demap the parkland, we have to map a zoning district, and then they start looking at the building and the envelope and the parking and all the design details. And then they'll have a environmental review process. So all those elements take, a couple years within the city process. And then there would be 9 of those applications. And then none of them may even be approved. So that's part of the reason also why we think it's more efficient to do it this way.
No, thank you. I understand the argument around efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
My concern is whether we would have enough information, as Commissioner Benjamin was saying, to actually understand what the project entails. Another question that stems from that is, if I understood correctly, you said that the negative declaration was determined when the Economic Opportunity City of Yes text amendment was analyzed, correct?
That's right.
But at that point, we didn't know that these were the 6 proposals that were on the radar, and is that correct? In other words,
I think.
Or we did.
Go ahead.
Did you incorporate these 6 proposals in when you determined that this was a negative declaration?
It was reviewed. I'd have to go back and comb through it to make sure how many of them were around. I think all were around. They've been around since the beginning of the year, discussions of them. But
Hi.
Hey, Stephanie.
Hi, everyone. Stephanie Schuler, Director of EARD here at City Planning. So the gaming text was considered conceptually in the EAS for economic opportunity because we did not yet have the final proposals or didn't know the fine-grained details, as well as relying upon a future environmental review that will be conducted as a part of the review of the state process, yes. So they will undergo environmental review for site-specific impacts and density-related impacts for these proposals, and there may be impacts. It's not yet determined because those environmental reviews have not yet been completed. So the EO was just saying that, economic opportunity negative declaration is saying these applications will undergo a future environmental review process. So this text amendment in and of itself does not have environmental impacts, but it's not a foregone conclusion about what the outcomes of those future environmental assessment or impact statements would be.
But we could still, if determined appropriate, have a seeker process for those proposals? No, right? It would be just under the state EAS process.
For ones that do not have other city actions. The ones that do have city actions, there will be a city environmental review component to them as well.
Gotcha. But that's also, taking into account the response to Commissioner Gold's question, we may also have other proposals come in that we haven't accounted for yet, and they would still be covered by the text amendment.
Yes, and they would go through either the city and the state or just the state process, depending on their actions.
Gotcha. One last question, and I understand sort of like it's a follow-up to your response to Commissioner Gold's question on the manufacturing districts. So it's clear that you're trying to be as systematic as possible with what seems to be a very unsystematic situation, let's say. But it just doesn't, I don't understand, or rather, my comment is, including the M1 districts in this mix may actually create additional issues, conflicts with other city policies, like, for example, the comprehensive waterfront plan. Because if they happen to be in a significant maritime and industrial area, then we're running into other issues that may potentially sort of like reduce the efficiency of the whole process. So I'm just wondering if you thought through some of those potential situations as well, scenarios as well.
So, like I mentioned earlier, it was predominantly for consistency's sake with the ZR, because we tend to do things and replicate things that we've done in the past in the way that things are laid out in the ZR. So since the use group A was typical in certain C districts and M districts, we included in both. So we don't see any applications or proposals in M districts at this time, and we don't think there are going to be any, but I take your point that it could have an impact in an M district if something eventually gets through the process.
But could we say, for example, we anticipate that it may have an impact, therefore we're restricting it to certain districts, not all of them?
I think so. That would be more of an environmental review process, is what you're saying, right? So I think that would be then reviewed by the state when they do their state environmental review. Correct?
But shouldn't that be part of our own analysis of whether there's a negative declaration on this? I mean, I'm just trying to understand how to fill in the gaps that we're sort of like, challenged by,
Yeah, I think the department doesn't feel like there is going to be a project in an M1 district. I understand that there could be one proposed in an M1 district, hypothetically. It doesn't seem like it's likely or logical to do it at this point. Or want to be located in an M1 district. So I think for consistency's sake, we tend to replicate things that we do in the ZR. But I take your point, and we can discuss it further internally.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Goodrich?
Some of what I want to ask was already asked, but I'll ask again because I didn't really hear an answer.
Okay.
So the first one was actually piggybacking off of Commissioner Benjamin's question. It's a twofold question, which is, the first one is, why should we allow this through this loophole of hotels? And the second is, what safeguards do we have to know that it wouldn't be broadened once passed? I am specifically concerned because of the negative effects of the socioeconomic negative effects of casinos in general. It's only allowed in approximately 23 states for a reason. It tanks local economies. Roughly half of the revenue comes from what is called problem gamers, which is another word for fostering addiction. And so if we are, so I guess my question is about three questions, but the basics of it is if we are allowing something through sort of like circumventing, it should actually be something positive, and that would help the local economy. So I'm just curious about why this specifically is even a proposal.
Sure.
So those are like three questions in one, but the first is I wanted a straight answer to Commissioner Benjamin's question.
So the first one was about hotels, right? So I think, I'm sorry, what?
Loophole.
So I don't know what a loophole is in the text, but the gaming facility can have a hotel associated with the gaming facility and the casino. And we don't see that as a loophole. We see that as a related use to the gaming facility. Second question was related to what aspect?
So one of the things that was asked is some people might just want to go to the casino that are not even related to the hotel. So that's one example of how it is like circumventing what is the original purpose of the text to have this passed. So that's why I said the word loophole. And then the second question was, how do we know that we have safeguards that this isn't broadened? I think Commissioner Benjamin mentioned like another example of one place of chips and how it had one original purpose, but then fell under something else once passed. And so I think that's another concern. So that's the second question. And the third question is, if we are looking to broaden and pass this amendment under something, what exactly is positive about casinos that we would be doing that for? Because it actually comes with a lot of negative socioeconomic factors.
Sure. So the third issue, I think your third question is correct. A lot of people do not appreciate gaming facilities and that use. But I think the goal of the text amendment is to enable the use if each community that reviews it approves of it. So, for example, maybe Manhattan likes the idea of a high-end gaming facility in a building, a tall building, a smaller impact. Maybe someone in Queens prefers to have a larger, more expansive facility. And how do those two relate to each other? So the idea is that when we're giving the opportunity for whatever neighborhood and community to give input on what type of facility that they would like or not like, right? So if you have a facility that has 5,000 slot machines, that's a very different group that's being attracted to those and able to use those versus some, high-end Casino Royale facility, which might have a smaller impact. But I think the idea here is that the city does not have the use in the zoning resolution, and this just puts it in, and then the CACs could then decide whether or not they want that use in their neighborhood, or if it's okay to have it somewhere else. Maybe they like it out by the airport. Maybe they want it by the convention center. It's up to them to decide. The use question about the chip-making facility, the uses are supposed to be related, and I don't think, frankly, there has been absolutely no discussion on chip-making facilities in our discussions with the state or internally. But we think that certain related uses would be acceptable, such as the hotel. It seems like directly related to the casino use, the gambling, having a hotel. Some of the other facilities have proposed a theater, a museum, other related uses, parking, and I think that's how we envision, and that's how the state also envisions the related uses, and not as manufacturing of any chips or baccarat boards or anything.
I think the chip,
Sure.
Another type, passing under one purpose, but then it being broadened later on.
So that would then have to be exposed during the CAC process, because when an applicant submits their application to the CAC, it'll say, we have a hotel, or we don't have a hotel, we have a gambling, live people gambling with dealers, et cetera. We have one restaurant, we have 4 restaurants, we might, and then if they have a chip making facility or something similar to that, then they would say, and we're going to be making chips related to the casino, and then the community would say, well, why are you making chips? Or if there's some sort of impact, I'm not familiar with this example from California, but if there's some sort of impact from that, that would be relayed during the application in open public meetings law requirements for the CAC and in the application to the state during that environmental review process.
So to sum up, and this is my last question, it's not a different question, but it's the third one. The purpose of this proposal, which it sounds like it's, I mean, I've read that there are already some private developers who, you know, the Mets owner and so forth, but the purpose of this is because it allows local communities to make their own decision, but I guess I'm still not understanding, despite all of the negative aspects of casinos, like what exactly about this in particular is motivating the city to even, you know, propose this?
Sure. So the 3 licenses are available downstate. New York City does not have a gaming facility or casino, racetrack, gambling facility use in the ZR. This puts the use into use group 8 in certain commercial manufacturing districts and says you could have this use in these districts, which makes it okay to have the gaming facility. But it's only associated with these 3 licenses, not any future license, not any future proposal. It's just up to these 3 licenses. And then the project, if this is approved, then these applications go to the CAC, who then review the applications and determine whether they want that in their neighborhood. They'll have the area, they'll have the site, they'll have the proposal and all the different related uses and what they're planning to do there. And that's the public process, and then there's a vote on that. And then those applications, if approved, there might not be a single application approved, but then the flip side of that, there might be more than a couple approved. So then those go through the Gaming Facilities Location Board to review, and then to the Gaming Commission.
Is
Commissioner.
Is it the case that if nothing gets approved, then nothing gets cited?
Nothing approved with the text amendment or with the...
No, I'm talking, not the text amendment. I'm talking about with the,
That's right.
the CAC.
That's right.
So
That's right. There could be 0 approved.
Right. To the Commissioner's point, then, the idea could be that there's a determination locally that nothing gets approved.
Yeah. And if there's multiple ones approved, those would then go to the Locations Board to review.
Right. So
in other words, no community is being forced to approve something that's been proposed there. They could approve nothing, even though...
That's totally correct. And just to clarify and to level set for all of this, I think what is motivating the proposal here is to level the playing field and to lean in onto the very significant process the state has set out for this application. And each of these individual CACs, which will be formed, they each have their own, to your point, Commissioner, their own approval process where you need 4 of the 6 appointees to agree before anything would even move on to the next step within the state process, its own environmental review, et cetera. Right. Not to mention the separate approvals that would be necessary for those applications that actually need separate and additional approvals from the Department of City Planning and us. So it is an effort to level playing field as opposed to approve any one application. We have 9 that are the likely 9 that we will see based on the way the state has called for applications and what people have gathered together to try to advance. And so we are trying to set up a process here which just enables the conversation to happen in an organized way, and that is not duplicative of what the state is trying to do. I think that is my answer to your very good questions, and I think that to Commissioner Crowell's point, every one of these has its own process, and yes, it is possible that none could make their way through the CAC processes. Okay, let me go to Commissioner Cerullo next.
So hopefully quickly, Stephen, first of all, thank you for that last
sort of, the response you just gave, which sort of summarized a variety of issues and, was very helpful. I just, one issue that's come up today about whether the 9 that we know or the 9, could there be more? And perhaps I'm recalling this incorrectly, but I thought there was a window, a period of time, I don't want to use the word to apply or register, where potential developers or applicants had to submit their ideas. I recall having to write a significant check in that process. Does that window just remain open? Did it not close at some point where the 9 we have are the 9 we know, or does that remain open? I thought that was not the case, because that eliminates the concern about whether we're still dealing with 9 or there can be 16 in another month.
No, there is actually a window where the applications need to be submitted so that they can be referred out to the CACs. That window actually hasn't closed yet.
Okay.
We don't precisely know, but we think it will probably close within the beginning of, January, February next year, early next year. But as Stephen said, all of the, potential applicants, we feel fairly comfortable that there's nobody hiding and, keeping it, quiet, that they're actually a potential applicant, because there's a lot of work that they need to do to get to the point where they can submit that initial application early next year. And so they've been doing their outreach. And so while technically the time still remains to apply, we feel very comfortable that we know who is applying.
Understood. I appreciate that. And again, just another clarification in terms of some of the questions that came up with respect to the limiting the implications of the text amendment to the 3 New York City sites or licenses. The language refers specifically to the state actions in this last year and a half that will be providing the 3 licenses in this period of time, right? Even if the state were to determine they wanted to do this again and issue 10 more licenses, is it true that we would then have to do another text amendment to modify the limiting language so that it would then refer to a new state action with a new date and a new, effective date?
That's correct.
Okay, so then, so that's not, it could be a concern that could happen, obviously, but no one else could take advantage of this particular text amendment language if they aren't in this application process period.
That's right.
Pursuant to the state creating this entire gaming license opportunity.
That's right. And it was created in the original 2012 New York State referendum. So it was a huge ordeal just to get to this point with the 7 licenses.
Okay.
Before I went upstate, and there's the 3 remaining for downstate.
Okay. Yes. So here's my final question. So we create the text amendment, which creates we add to the use group this use for gaming facilities and the related uses. In the responsibilities of the State Gaming Facility Location Board, one of the bullets is to establish a reasonable amount of time for applicants to obtain zoning approval for their proposed projects. What would that be if they are already in it? Is that the example that we heard a few times where they have to come back for something else?
That's right. So there's a couple applications who are more at ease with this process because they already have a development, their building is built, and they just want to put the use in the building. And their other stuff is as of right, and it's not a big issue. But there's a few projects where they have a number of actions that they have to complete ahead of time And it takes a long time to get these actions through the process. And the example I used was the one at Willits, where they have to, demap parkland, they have to get a zoning district, they have, they might have new ramps in and out of the facility that are on state property, et cetera. So those are things that are separate from the text amendment that are coming to the commission sometime in first half of next year.
So this text amendment does not automatically create some completely as-of-right use in every area of zoning for the use or the structure, whatever for the development itself, if other approvals are required.
If other approvals are required. So the example of Saks.
Yes.
Saks' proposal is within the existing building.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not building anything. They've changed around some of the internal configurations and then some of the internal things. But they're not sweating any of they don't need a zoning district. They don't need to do anything with parkland. They don't need a dispo.
Mm-hmm.
They have all these things that are just easier for them to do. So they're not having to sweat over getting any actions done in city planning ahead of the state timeline for when things have to be completed.
And I guess the follow-up to that is, so an applicant who has a proposal that requires additional actions, those actions need to be approved and completed before the, what is it called? The Gaming Facility Location Board would vote on it?
So the exact timeline is what we're waiting for from the state, is to tell us when their timeline, their deadlines are, when the approval is, when they need to review applications by that are approved. But that's the tricky part for the couple of applications that have these other actions.
You would think. So if the CAC at that point had said, yes, we like this one, and they voted with the 2/3 vote to move it forward, and then the applicant still has to get additional approvals, but you don't know how long that might take or whether or not that might even happen.
That's right.
And there's a hold on that third license, right? It's one of the three. It's going to be a really interesting process. But I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rampersad.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. A lot of the questions I had were already asked by other commissioners. I just have one thing I'm just thinking about in my head. I know you're saying the text amendment is going to involve 3210, 4210, but why not also 1210 under definitions? Is the agency going to adopt the definition of gaming from the state, like the way they describe it? Why not input that into the definition so they know? And the reason I bring that up is, my parents had a store for 25 years in Ozone Park. I remember when Aqueduct was going to have the casino, and everyone was like, okay. A lot of people were excited. Then they found out there was no live table games. It was all video, like, I didn't understand, and I still don't understand today what the distinction between live and why some are allowed to have live and some are allowed to have both. I don't know. But I'm just curious if that could be defined. And also, the reason I bring that up is I'm looking at 1210 now, and under hotels, says transient, permitted uses says including restaurants, cocktail lounges, public banquet halls, ballrooms, or meeting rooms. I'm assuming if this goes through, and I understand this is a site-specific, is something going to be incorporated to be added on into that definition of hotel?
No, nothing's going to be added into the definition in the ZR. This is strictly, so we wanted to keep it contained to the gaming facility use and not kind of have it spread throughout the ZR. We want to have it contained just for this particular use, and we don't use the state's definition, but we follow it in the proposed zoning text in your briefing package. It follows a lot of the same language about related uses that the state uses.
But you're not thinking about putting like a section that says like gaming. They're not thinking about doing that at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Marine, followed by Commissioners Kermani and Crowell.
Thank you, Chair. Stephen, I do believe you answered my question when you responded to Commissioner Cirillo, but I want to pose a specific just to better understand what exactly is going to happen. So I understand that the site-specific selection will then trigger some sort of review.
Environmental review.
Environmental review.
Yeah.
That's correct. And so my concern would be for the sites that are in parks, right?
That's right.
Let's just say for a minute, we don't meet our open space ratio as a result of planning this casino in this park. And that needs to be mitigated before the casino can start. It is possible that a site may not be found to mitigate and that the CAC will then not recommend the casino. But if the CAC does recommend the casino, then a site must be found to mitigate the loss of open space. Is that correct?
So the good news is that those are the projects that are coming to the commission. So anything that's developed on a parkland needs to come through to the commission and get approval, and you will be seeing exactly what they're proposing to swap or mitigate or build or take care of, all the details of building on parkland and what is happening with that project.
I kind of figured that when you responded to Searle, but I just wanted to make sure that,
Sure.
that's what I heard.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kamani.
Thank you, and thank you. I just have a quick, easy question.
Sure.
Which is, I know that it says that the State Gaming Facility Location Board, one of its kind of review criteria is the workforce enhancement. So just in terms of process, is it at the CAC level where kind of local employment, community benefit, that kind of thing will be determined? Like if the casino is put here, then 40% of new hires have to, is that where that decision is or that recommendation is made?
So at the CAC level, any issue can be raised. So if the CAC has brought issues related to diversity or workforce development, and then that's approved, then that would then be in the application moving forward.
Okay.
So that would be, they're not necessarily the final decision makers at the CAC, because, for example, if the Gaming Facilities Location Board gets 5 approved applications, then they make the determination of who gets the 3 licenses. But the CAC will hear whatever issues are, and if that's an issue for that community, then that would then be wrapped up into the application, because they would cite it.
Yeah, thank you. I have a feeling that would be an issue for every
Yeah, I would think it would be an
community.
issue too, but never know.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, now we're going to go to a couple of follow-ups for round 2 here from Commissioners Benjamin and Dweck and Osorio, and then we're going to call it a day. So, Commissioner Benjamin.
I wanted one clarification. You used 2 different words. One question was, is the CAC required to have a public hearing where people get to speak, or a public meeting where they can come and watch?
I'm not sure the exact difference. I don't know if they've said explicitly.
It does.
It's a hearing. It's a hearing.
Yeah.
It is a hearing.
And is the CAC a recommendation for the site? And anything that any conditions they may have, a requirement? Or is it like the community board and it's nice, but when the City Planning Commission votes on it, we can ignore those?
My understanding is that whatever the CAC says goes. So if the CAC approves a 500-space parking garage, that goes through, and they can't put in a 1,000-space parking garage,
Can they put in no parking?
if that's what the CAC approves.
No, if the CAC approves 500 spaces, and as the application progresses to the State Advisory Gaming Board, they decide that only bicycle parking will be required. Can they do that?
So I don't think they can do that, because that's not what was approved by the CAC. So whatever the CAC is approving is the process for the next step for the Gaming Facilities Location Board to review.
And we're certain of that.
Yes.
And I have a concern because it seems like other agencies have not given up their ability to review the individual sites irrespective of whether they meet other requirements. So my question is, in part, does the State Liquor Authority still have authority to review these proposals and reject them for bars or liquor if they so choose? Do they have to go through that process?
I would assume they would go through whatever the process is for gaining the license. So, you know, gambling and drinking are something I'm sure that they want to have at this facility, so.
Sure they do. But I guess my question is, since we're going to give up any review of the design, the height, the uses, is anybody else giving up those things also? The state has, at various times, adopted legislation to limit the city's review and of certain things, let's say for school site selection. They passed a law and said, you guys aren't doing it anymore. So I'm trying to understand why they chose to do it this way and have us basically cut ourselves out of the process when they could have done it themselves and cut the whole city review out of the process.
Well, I think they just want input from the city, from New York City and the residents. They don't want to plop a facility down somewhere that nobody wants it. So I think that's how they're getting input from the city, and we're facilitating that by doing the text amendment. And then whatever state processes that are required to have, for example, a drinking license, those would then be reviewed by whatever.
At what point would they have to know they could get those things? If they get to the end of this whole process and then state liquor says, well, we're not going to give you a...
I don't see how that could even happen. So I think, you know, if they meet the criteria for whatever the liquor board wants them to meet in order to get the license, then they will receive it.
You can tell I am very, very, very troubled about this and what it says about zoning in New York City and whether we have zoning or whether, is it possible to, if you want to do this carve out for one use for 3 particular people, I mean, it seems to me that making a zoning solution is the widest. Is it possible to have a sunset clause on how long this text would exist?
So the text was written to only,
I understand.
so I
It's
didn't,
possible.
I guess it's possible. I don't know if it's advisable, but it's possible to have something written in.
And while you say that this doesn't apply to future changes, if the ownership changes, is that a change that would have to come to us?
No, that's internal bureaucratic business dealings. So the changes that would come to us, my example was the parking structure. Or if they're like, okay, we're going to have one, this is all hypothetical, we're going to have 2 towers, one's a hotel and one's a gaming facility. We decided to cut it into 3 towers, we're going to add a tower. And it's like, they can't just do that after it's been approved a certain way. So then they would have to come back and get that reviewed.
If we approved it because, let's say, the Chickasaw Nation was a part of it and the Chickasaw Nation was guaranteeing that there would be a certain amount of local jobs. And then they were out of it and it was replaced by Mr. Wynn, who said, local jobs, I don't care. How would that? So if there was an agreement, a legal document that said, you know, we'd have to have a certain number of workforce, certain diversity goals, certain number of local neighborhood jobs, whoever takes over the lease or whoever takes over the property would have to meet those same requirements. It wouldn't just drop because they sold to Who is the enforcement agent for that?
The state would be the enforcement agent, I think, for that.
Which part of the state?
I do not know which part of the state.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, and Susan's going to come up, and I just want to follow up on a couple of Commissioner Benjamin's before I go to Commissioner Dweck. But go ahead, Susan.
If it's part of the state licensing, the state gaming commission is responsible for enforcing it, backed up by the Attorney General's office, who does enforcement on behalf of the state. So anything that would be, you know, part of the approval, of the state approval, is the gaming commission, and the Attorney General's office. And I do want to say on the sort of the identity, though, I mean, what would come back to us is land use issues. If there's a non-land use change, we would never, wouldn't be something that would have been appropriate for us to consider anyway in a land use approval and wouldn't come back to us, but any land use change would be something that would need to come back to us.
Just for clarification, and I want to just follow up here on a couple of Commissioner Benjamin's questions. On the CAC, the CAC is going to have the role of locking in a variety of requirements on a specific site. They're the ones who are going to package the application, decide the number of parking spaces, jobs, whatever it is they're going to do, local hiring. That's going to be part of the CAC process. Is that correct?
Yes, all of the sort of the details will go to the CAC, and the CAC will need to approve it.
And whatever it is that is in that basket of things that the CAC, with the mayor and the governor and the local assembly member and the council member, borough president, et cetera, that they have approved, that is the application that goes among other applications for consideration by the Gaming Commission. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's our understanding, and that's why there's a CAC and a 2/3, a 4 out of 6 vote, because state wants to know that what comes to them is what the community representatives are saying is okay with us. And this is what we will support, and then if it's not what we will support, it doesn't have the support required to go to the state.
So the intent of the Gaming Commission, to the extent that we can articulate the intent of the state legislation and Gaming Commission, is for by the time these proposals are through the CAC, to the extent that any of them make it through the CAC, it is something that has community approval and that it is something that the Gaming Commission is comparing against the other proposals that have made it through for final approval. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly right, yes.
Okay.
And they meet the zoning ordinances, any local zoning laws, which is where we come in.
Right. Got it. Thank you. Commissioner Dweck, thank you.
I'm just like to clarify. There is a scenario where the CAC approves more than 3 sites, since the CAC is site-specific. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So they could approve all the applications, and then it'd be up to the gaming location board to make the final determination as to...
Right. Related to basically those 4 criteria of economic development, workforce, diversity, and jobs.
Got it. Okay.
And then they rank those and rate those. I mean, I'm sure they hope they have the opportunity to have more than 3 to review.
Thank you. What does diversity mean?
Excuse me?
You mentioned diversity. Can you clarify what diversity?
I think that's just who's being hired and what groups are being hired to do any work on the project. I can get those details to you more specifically from their application package and what they mean.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Osorio?
Thank you, Chair, and thanks again for addressing our questions. It's great to have the 3 of you here. Thank you. I guess I wanted to ask a clarification question to the response to Commissioner Goodrich's last question. Is there another scenario where, it sounds like the city is deciding that we want to amend zoning to include gaming as a new use? So we're changing the zoning resolution, we're changing it to include something that right now is not allowed. Is there a scenario where the city says no? If that happens, then the state will be able to do that in state-owned land, but no private applicant could be able to do it. But that's another scenario, right?
So, if it passes or doesn't pass at the commission level, if it passes, then it goes to the council. And if it passes or doesn't pass there, I mean, it's a standard text amendment with who can vote up and down on it.
No, thank you. I guess my question is, we are deciding, or the city is saying, no, we should change the zoning resolution to allow this, but we don't know what New Yorkers think about this, or do we?
Well, I think the idea is that just give New York City the opportunity, right? So there's no opportunity to have the use. This makes it so there is at least the opportunity for Manhattan, Queens, and the Bronx and Brooklyn to decide whether or not they want it at that site and that location and what that development is.
No, thank you.
It doesn't mean it's approved, but it just means they have the opportunity to look at it.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I just wanted to make sure that we said out loud that that's another scenario where we just say no.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and yes, I think that my final thought before now we refer this out to community boards is that it's an effort to level playing field and not duplicate the efforts, because that will be something which we at the city, other than site-specific interests here, don't really have a need to do separate apart from the state's rigorous process that they have set up. Okay, with that, thank you everybody for your attention to this one. We're going to refer it to the community boards, borough boards, and borough presidents for 60 days. Stephen, thank you very much for all of your efforts, and we will move on to the next item on the agenda.
The second item on our agenda is the review of a non-ULURP general project plan in Brooklyn Community District 9. Our presenter is Jordan Fraud.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chair Gorodnick and Commissioners. This afternoon, I'll be presenting the general project plan for the Kingsborough Psychiatric Center mixed-use project. The applicant for this project is Empire State Development. This is a land use improvement and residential project that's being sponsored pursuant to the New York State Urban Development Corporation Act, or the UDC Act, which requires CPC review and the opportunity to submit a comment letter. This is a 100% income-restricted development with 1,090 units containing a mix of unit types that would serve older adults, formerly homeless persons, and low-income families and individuals. It's located at 681 Clarkson Avenue in Brooklyn Community District 9. ESD will present this project to their board on November 30th, and the 30-day period for the CPC to submit a comment letter will begin that day. The deadline for the CPC approval letter is December 30th. The proposed project is part of the State of New York's Vital Brooklyn Initiative, a comprehensive community development program that addresses chronic social, economic, and health disparities in central Brooklyn. The development team for this project is Douglaston Development, Allmat, Brooklyn Community Services, and Hill West Architects. The project site, shown at the bottom left of this image, is located in East Flatbush, just south of Crown Heights and between Kings County Hospital and Utica Avenue. There are two other future Vital Brooklyn development sites in CD9, Kingsbrook Jewish Medical Center and Utica Crescent, both located just east of the project site. The project site is bounded by 70-foot wide Winthrop Street to the north, 80-foot wide Troy Avenue to the east, 83-foot wide Clarkson Avenue to the south, and 80-foot Albany Avenue to the west. It's located in an R5 district. R5 allows all residential and community facility uses. It allows a maximum FAR of 1.25 and a maximum building height of 40 feet, both of which are lower than what's proposed in the GPP. The residential area surrounding the site is predominantly composed of 2-story row houses and 3 to 6-story multifamily buildings. Kings County Hospital and SUNY Downstate are located to the west, and the Kingsborough Psychiatric Center is located to the east. The area is located within the transit zone and is served by the Winthrop Street stop of the 2 and 5 trains, about 3,000 feet to the west, and select bus service on Utica Avenue, about 2,000 feet to the east. The project site is comprised of roughly a square-shaped lot, approximately 390,000 square feet in area, and is currently occupied by 2 homeless shelters for single adult men and storage facilities for the New York State Department of Mental Health. The benefits of this project, it would allow for the reuse of an underutilized property, provide affordable housing, including supportive housing and housing for senior citizens in a significantly underserved area, improve wellness and economic opportunities for residents and the surrounding community, provide space for job-creating operations, and it could improve economic opportunities in the East Flatbush neighborhood more broadly. This slide shows an illustrative rendering of the project from a bird's eye view. This is a 100% income-restricted development comprised of 1,090 units containing a mix of unit types that would serve older adults, formerly homeless persons, and low-income families and individuals. The proposed ground floor uses include an 1199 SEIU facility, an emergency food provider, a ballet studio, and a social services space, along with a grocery store. The development would also include a total of 2.8 acres of open space, 77% of which would be open to the public. The buildings would range in height from 56 to 150 feet. Here is the chart of various use components of the proposed project and the percentage of total floor area they would comprise. Overall, we're looking at about 1.1 million square feet of floor area, 94% of which would be residential. The residential program of the site would include units set aside for seniors, chronically homeless persons, low to moderate income families, youth aging out of foster care, and people with severe behavioral health issues. 9% of all units would be homeownership units. We're now looking at the site plan of the proposed development. Different types of affordable housing are interspersed throughout the site, including lower scale buildings containing units specifically designed for homeownership at the northern end. Vehicle access to the site would be provided via a cul-de-sac driveway on East 42nd Street, south of Winthrop Street, and a private access drive serving as an extension of East 43rd Street, traversing the length of the site from north to south. We are now looking at the ground floor plan. You can see the various types of service providers and businesses that would occupy the ground floors of the project. As previously mentioned, emergency food provider, a grocery store, a ballet studio, and an SEIU facility, among other uses. The project will have an extensively planned open space program. Of 2.8 total acres of open space, 2.16 acres will be accessible to the public, approximately the same size as Valentino Park and Pier in Red Hook, for reference. The programming will include a large lawn for sports and recreation, along with a community promenade for markets and events, a garden with native plants, a children's play area, and a walking circuit with fitness equipment. Private open space will mostly take the form of balconies, terraces, and roof decks. The site is currently zoned R5, which, as mentioned earlier, does not allow the uses, height, and bulk currently being proposed in the GPP. In order to implement the proposed project, ESD would need to override the New York City zoning resolution in accordance with the UDC Act and establish design guidelines to govern the proposed development in lieu of zoning and other local requirements. Our office provided various comments to ESD on the proposed design guidelines for the development. I will now briefly review a few of the major topics we identified. We provided feedback that helped shape the site plan related to aspects such as building placement, the provision of over 2 acres of public open space, and a circulation network connecting the residents of Crown Heights and East Flatbush to the new amenities and services. Several of our comments were focused on improving overall connectivity and better integrating the proposed development with the surrounding context. With regard to open space components of the site plan, more detailed comments concerned ensuring an inviting and accessible condition with active and passive features, clear wayfinding, ensuring that walking paths and sidewalks were of an adequate width, included ample planting and tree cover. We also requested that the publicly accessible open space be subject to the similar design reference standards and regulations that govern city parks, including maintenance considerations and hours of operation. Additionally, DCP and ESD are continuing to discuss how to regulate building envelopes across various parcels. We actually gave Empire State Development comments on this topic that they recently accommodated. This slide is out of date as of this morning, basically. And we're happy to say that the new updated information has renderings from Empire State Development that hew much closer to the Department of City Planning's feedback and the design guidelines. Basically, we were having a discussion over whether building massing and placement should be regulated via envelope or via setback and street wall. And ESD seems to be willing to move more in the direction of regulating via a more carefully drawn envelope in order to offer a more predictable built outcome. In conclusion, we recommend approving the proposed project with recommendations. The deadline for CPC approval letter is December 30th, and a draft approval letter incorporating comments from the Commission will be submitted in time for the next review session. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very much for this. Let me just ask one, what relates to the bulk distribution.
Mm-hmm.
How is the bulk distribution locked in here? And what what has the department said here, and what is the preferred outcome for bulk distribution?
Yes. So the original proposal from Empire State Development basically had the building envelopes in the form of boxes. You can sort of see on the left-hand side what was proposed in the current design lines. You can see the proposed massing of the buildings, but the envelope was effectively a box, which left massing and bulk open to be tweaked in any way as long as it fit within that envelope. The Department of City Planning felt that tightening the envelope would allow for more predictability and avoid the need for the envelopes to be paired with complex rules regarding design controls. What currently exists in the design guidelines before the change that was made this morning was that the placement of the buildings was regulated via setbacks and street walls. And the Department of City Planning thought that changing the actual envelope itself would be a more effective way to achieve the outcome that we wanted in terms of building massing. Like I said, I think ESD updated its materials online just this morning with an updated slide that makes it seem like, according to our design team, they're moving more in the direction that we had hoped in terms of tightening the envelope and regulating building placement via envelope instead of street wall and setback. But we would want a little more time to check those revisions and make sure that that they're moving in the direction that we like.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Commissioner Bozarg.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. Excited about the project and this amount of affordable housing being brought to the city. I'm curious if there's any information on the 427 units for the general population, what the kind of bedroom mix and unit mix of those are. Presumably, a lot of the other housing will be ones and studios, given the population served. Do we have any more info on the bedroom mix?
I believe we do. I don't have it in my notes, but I can check and get back to you.
Okay. It'd be great to see if there's family size units, whether there's any intent to bring kind of...
Okay, so the breakdown of unit sizes for the general population.
Yeah,
okay.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Osorio.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much for the presentation, and I agree. This is a very interesting project. I had a quick question on whether there is room or whether this has come up already in your discussions about the stormwater inundation vulnerability of Winthrop, and whether there are opportunities to address that through, either the setback or the urban design along that side. I mean, I agree with the changes that you just shared with us. I mean, what the last slide basically in terms of like breaking down the street wall and so forth, or the adjustments to the massing. But I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to also address what seems to be, according to the DEP stormwater inundation maps, like a very vulnerable, potentially floodable sidewalk.
Yeah. So the issue of stormwater, if I am remembering correctly, was not one that came up when we were having a back and forth with ESD over design guidelines. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're not in the design guidelines. It just means it wasn't a topic of conversation between us and them. But I can go back and reread the design guidelines, see what in them pertains to stormwater, and let you know.
Is there an opportunity, you think, to include that, if not in our letter?
Do you want to? Okay.
I just wanted to confirm that there are some mentions of performative requirements for landscaping in the design guidelines. They do reference DEP standards and bioswales and provision of rain gardens as well. So it currently includes these overall goals.
The spirit for the question is that the open space, which I'm very excited about, is on the other side. So all of the opportunities to absorb water are where the flooding is not going to be an issue. Where the flooding is going to be an issue seems to be all impermeable, and that's why I'm wondering whether there's an opportunity to include some of that in our letter.
Absolutely. We can certainly extend that comment to ESD. Right now, it is mostly pertaining to the open space proposed on-site, not so much the surrounding sidewalks, but we can certainly include that comment as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kamani.
Hi, thank you. First of all, I'm excited about this too, to echo Commissioner Bozorg. And also want to commend that there are both the young adults aged 18 to 25 and youth aging out of foster care, which is something that we rarely see called out. And just, I'm curious, for the youth aging out of foster care units, do they age out of those units? Is there an age, like a youth and ages out of foster care, they can be in those units forever, or just curious?
Yeah, I'm actually not sure. I can take a look and try to get back to you. I don't know if, for example, once they hit 25, they're eligible for like another space in the same development, or whether it's, you know, there's a hard cap at 25 years old. But I'll look and I'll try to let you know. And
then also on the 9% of home ownership opportunities, which is great. I mean, it's kind of the same question. Obviously, it would be great if there was some kind of pipeline, or even if that was thought about. So young people aging out of foster care, they're in a unit that they're paying rent, there's home ownership opportunity in the development that they're given preferred, that something. Is there thought to that? Thank you.
Great, thank you, Commissioner. Okay, we will pick this one up at the, I'm sorry, Commissioner Goodrich, I'm sorry.
I see 100%. And I was wondering, is there, I know that there's formerly homeless or senior, but is there breakdown, or does? Like 30% AM.
Right. I think because there are so many different categories of affordable housing, I don't want to like give an answer without going back and checking to make sure that I'm not misspeaking. So I'll go back and take a look and I'll let you know.
Oh, thank you.
Great, thank you. With that, we will pick this one up at the next review session on the December 11th, and a draft letter will be provided to commissioners before that meeting. So thank you very much, Jordan, and let's move on to the next item.
The third item on our agenda is a certification of a site selection and acquisition in Brooklyn Community District 7. Our presenter is Juki Sai.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon, Juki.
This is an application for a site selection and acquisition action jointly sought by the New York City Department of Finance, DOF, and the New York City Department of Citywide Administrative Services, DCAS, to facilitate 31,900 square feet of space for DOF for active storage and furniture refurbishment, as well as 750 square feet of space on the adjacent parking lot at 850 3rd Avenue in Sunset Park, Community District 7, Brooklyn. DOF administers the tax and revenue laws of New York City. A key responsibility of the agency includes the billing and collection of property, business, and excise taxes. These records contain personal and confidential information that must be maintained in accordance with Internal Revenue Service, IRS, high security protocols. In 2014, IRS Publication 1075 provided new regulations regarding the storage of sensitive information, which necessitated a new, more secure storage facility with continuous access. As a result of these new regulations, it was imperative that DOF obtain secure file storage with 24-hour, 7-day-a-week self-service access for DOF employees. DOF currently maintains 2 operational facilities in the Sunset Park neighborhood of Brooklyn, one at Industry City, which the city has leased since 1997, and another at 850 3rd Avenue, which is on a short-term license agreement. This application would make the short-term license agreement at 850 3rd Avenue into a long-term lease. DOF and DCAS have determined that long-term use of the space at 850 3rd Avenue is necessary so that DOF can comply with IRS Publication 1075, and because it provides electric charging stations that will accommodate the electric truck DOF plans to acquire for its warehouse operations. The project area is in Sunset Park near the waterfront. It is bounded by 2nd Avenue to the west, 3rd Avenue and the elevated Gowanus Expressway to the east, 30th Street to the north, and 32nd Street to the south. The area to the north and south of the project area is developed with large warehouse buildings that contain industrial, commercial, and institutional uses. This includes Industry City and Metropolitan Detention Center, which you can see labeled here. To the west of the project area is South Brooklyn Marine Terminal, home to the Sims Municipal Recycling Plant. The area to the east of the project area, across 3rd Avenue, contains a mix of single-story industrial buildings and 2 to 4-story residential buildings. To the east of that is a mix of local commercial use along 4th Avenue. The project area is in the transit zone. The 36th Street stop for the D, N, and R subway lines is roughly 6 blocks southeast of the building, and the 25th Street stop for the R train is roughly 6 blocks northeast of the project area, and that's labeled here. There are also several bus lines that serve the area and a protected bike lane that runs along 4th Avenue. The project area is located in an M31 district that covers most of the Sunset Park waterfront, as well as parts of Red Hook. It is located in the Southwest Brooklyn IBZ. The area to the east of the project area is zoned M1 2D. The project area is located at 850 3rd Avenue, Block 671, Lot 1, and the adjacent parking lot at 870 3rd Avenue, Block 675, Lot 10. The Commission may be familiar with this site from HRA and DCAS's application for office space at the same building. Block 671, Lot 1 is improved with an 8-story, 1,113,000 square foot building known as Liberty Brooklyn, and that's formerly Liberty View Industrial Plaza, which includes a mix of light manufacturing, retail, and commercial office space uses. These include large retailers such as Saks Fifth Avenue and Micro Center, among others, and there's also an Amazon Flex facility on the first floor of the building. Block 675, Lot 10 is improved with an approximately 163,000 square foot surface parking lot that serves Liberty Brooklyn visitors. Moving into some site photos. This photo looks south at 3rd Avenue. You can see the locator map in the upper right-hand corner and the project area denoted by the yellow hashed line. This photo looks north on 3rd Avenue. This photo looks northwest on 2nd Avenue. And this photo looks southeast on 2nd Avenue, and you can see Metropolitan Detention Center on the left-hand side there. The proposed project would facilitate the acquisition of approximately 31,900 square feet of space on the 5th floor of 850 3rd Avenue, as well as the acquisition of approximately 750 square feet on the adjacent privately owned parking lot. The 750 square feet on the adjacent parking lot would be used for 2 parking spaces with electric chargers reserved for DOF vehicles, which transport DOF materials from one location to another. No parking would be provided for employees who would be expected to use mass transit. The space at 850 3rd Avenue would primarily be used for active storage of DOF records and a workshop for furniture refurbishment, such as chairs and desks used in various DOF facilities across the city. According to DOF, approximately 5 to 8 employees would be at the location on a regular basis, and the other approximately 12 to 15 employees will access the space on an as-needed basis. And you can see in this photo some of the secure storage area and some of the general storage area. The space would be accessible 24/7. However, typical hours of operation would be Monday through Friday business hours, and no employees are anticipated to occupy the space on weekends. DOF staff would be permitted to utilize a dedicated loading dock and elevator to access the storage space. All materials from this site would be distributed between DOF's 13 locations throughout the 5 boroughs, utilizing those DOF vehicles that I mentioned. And there can be daily trips to the space or at least 3 trips on a weekly basis. Pictured here is the furniture refurbishment area. In summary, This is an application for a site selection acquisition action jointly sought by DOF and DCAS to facilitate 31,900 square feet of space for DOF for active storage and furniture refurbishment, as well as 750 square feet of space on the adjacent surface parking lot at 850 3rd Avenue in Sunset Park, Community District 7, Brooklyn. Thank you. I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Juki. Before I go to the Vice Chairman, let me just ask a couple of very quick questions. So this is 31,000 square feet of space plus 750 square feet for parking. So it's not an enormous amount of space, an otherwise very big building, but there are some restrictions here, some deed restrictions on this building that limit the amount of office space that is allowed.
Yeah.
Now, one, this may not actually count, but tell us what the dynamic is in this building, how this is consistent with that. Just give us a sense.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So two things I'll break down really quickly. Just according to Liberty Brooklyn, the owner of this property's website, they list some of the vacancies in the building. Currently, I think there may be a vacancy on the first floor. That's kind of commercial use. But in floors, first and second floor, in floors 3 through 7, there's about 400,000 square feet of vacant space, and this is 31,900. But what you're bringing up, the deed amendment, so when this property was sold by EDC or conveyed by EDC, who received it from the federal government, I believe, when EDC conveyed it to Salmar Properties, the property contained a deed restriction which limited to a specific set of uses around some production, but also some storage, or I would say active storage for sort of active distribution. And there is a limit on, I believe, 260,000 or so square feet of space, of office space. So there's a limit in the deed restriction on how much office space there is. However, our understanding is that the space that is being proposed here, due to the nature of its use, does not count against that office space tranche in the deed restriction. And that's just due, again, to the nature of what this space is being used for, both the sort of active storage of records and the furniture refurbishment. Does that answer your question?
It definitely does. Thank you very much. Let me go to Vice Chair Knuckles.
No, you learn something every day. I had no idea that when Commissioner Cerullo was Commissioner of Finance, he was storing and refurbishing furniture. I had no idea.
I had no idea either.
Bankers furniture.
Thank you very much.
By the way, Vice Chair, we're co-applicants here. We have the former commissioner of DCAS, the predecessor agency.
And they said I was doing it, I said sure, because we did everything, but
We did everything.
Do you guys want to present at the public hearing?
Yes. Thank you very much. Are there other questions here? Okay, Commissioner Osorio, Commissioner Benjamin.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I have a question. Have you looked elsewhere, given sort of like the amount of vacancy that exists right now in other parts of the city for the type of uses that you're seeking?
So I will, as far as the identifying of space, I'll defer to the applicant on that, who will be coming back from a public hearing. I will say, just given the nature of what this space is being used for, there were specifics in this building that I believe, and again, they can speak to this, that really fit their needs. Beyond currently using it, I think the security of the space as well as the loading specifics, I believe make this a very suitable space for the use that they're proposing. And then also, given that they had a nearby space in Industry City that they relocated from to this space as well. But I will leave it to the applicant to speak more on the actual selection process, given current vacancies in the rest of the city.
Gotcha. No, I understand. I mean, I can understand the desire to consolidate. It's just that, as you may recall also from the previous conversation about relocating, in this case, it's not necessarily office space, right? Yeah. It's a combination of warehousing, some type of other uses, but not necessarily light manufacturing, which is what some of the other city policies, at least are asking for, right? Like, this is a significant maritime and industrial area. Number one, it's across the street from South Brooklyn Marine Terminal, where the city specifically is asking for or to grow the offshore wind industry, and including other uses, right? Not just the assembly part. So from a land use point of view, from a larger kind of like neighborhood-wide rationale, this sounds to me like it's contradicting sort of these others or like land use policies. And so you don't have to address that now, but I'm wondering if when we see this again, if we can talk a little bit about how does this fit in, this larger sort of like manufacturing industrial retention policy.
Yeah, and if I may respond really quickly, I hear what you're saying there. I think two things, and I'll separate this from just the applicant, just talking about the policy in the neighborhood. And I also wanted to mention, Commissioner Osaro, specifically for you, that our CSP team reviewed their application, and I want to make sure I'm getting this correctly. It will not hinder the achievement of the WRP policy, and so they reviewed it for consistency with our DCP WRP policy in general. But what I want to say about this is, there's 400,000 square feet of vacancy in the building. They're using, they're very specific components, again, of the freight and the security provided here. So while it may not be exactly, the manufacturing that, I know, the type of jobs that's sort of imagined for the waterfront here, I think it fits the sort of the building characteristics are very appropriate for the storage, A, but B, there's still, I want to say 370,000 square feet of space in the building that can be leased out to light manufacturers. And we would love to see that, but currently there is 400,000 square feet vacant, and it hasn't been filled as of yet. So, when thinking about weighing those things, if there were like light manufacturing tenants banging down the door to get into this building, that might be a different consideration in the landscape here. But currently there is that vacancy, and this is, standalone, I think, a pretty appropriate use for this site.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to hear that, your team has been looking into it. I would appreciate if you can share the rationale and the research behind that so that I can review, because I just still don't understand how would these uses contribute to industrial and, in fact, a water-dependent priorities that are established by the SMIA, therefore enforced by the WRP.
Mm-hmm. Just as far as our rationale for the general compliance with the WRP for a site like this. Okay, yeah, and just, I'm sure you know the process well. Part of it is reviewing the EAS, going through the various check boxes on it, but I can give a little, follow-up on how we came to that sign-off on this application. Thanks, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Benjamin?
Yeah, I think I can address, there was a part that said because they weren't part of the original fair siting facility, they did go into some analysis of 7 other sites that they looked at, and that were rejected in part because they were more costly. Which brings up my question, which is, I noted that now ACS is going to be looking at space at this 3rd Avenue site.
Yes.
It's not a lot of space, but I'm wondering if, one, DCAS is suggesting to agencies that are looking for space that this is a good location.
I can't speak for DCAS on that, but I think they will be here for a public hearing, and you can ask them.
Okay, because as you know from the last one we had, I am concerned that in this location where we have determined that manufacturing is appropriate, and that we've been trying to establish it and rebrand it as a more modern manufacturing area, that we, the city, seem to be the ones who keep eating away at how others might see it. And I do think that despite having worked for city agencies my whole life, that many other tenants look at a building that's highly tenanted by city entities as not desirable.
Unfortunately, I don't have a great answer for you, Commissioner Benjamin, but no, I think we very much do, you know, especially Sunset Park, the legacy of the neighborhood. It is, you know, important for us, and we want to see these uses. Again, it's also a matter of what comes in front of us and sort of what space is available, and currently there is a lot in there. But
And that's why I said, you know, I wanted to know if DCAS was in fact one of the entities that is suggesting to agencies that are looking for some space, why don't you look at 850?
Yeah. And yeah, I think they should be able to answer some of that.
Ken, you want to answer?
I'm 30 years removed.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, this is certified. We're going to move on to the next item today. Thank you, Juki.
Thank you.
The fourth item on our agenda is a certification of a UDAP designation, project approval, and disposition of city-owned property in the Bronx Community District 6. Presenting for the first time to the Commission is Yafit Sheffer-Sol.
All right, Yafit, welcome. Good to have you.
Thank you. So, good afternoon, Commissioners. This presentation, as we just mentioned, is for the certification of the East Tremont Cluster Neighborhood Construction Program, an NCP, and the New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development requests an Urban Development Action Area Project, UDAP designation, project approval, and disposition of city-owned property to facilitate the construction and development of 3 new residential buildings with a total of 64 affordable housing units in the East Tremont neighborhood in Community District 6 in the Bronx. The surrounding area is generally bounded by Crotona Park to the south, Walter Gladwin Park to the west, East Tremont Avenue to the north, and Crotona Parkway Southern Boulevard to the east. There are multiple schools and other social organizations in the project area. PS 44 and 211 and IS 318 are located west of the project area on Prospect Avenue, close to Site 3, and MS 129 is located north of the project area. The surrounding area has many houses of worship, including 2 churches directly adjacent to Development Site 3 on Crotona Ave. Other noteworthy places of interest include a Head Start Education Center on Crotona Park North and Volunteers of America, which is a human services organization on East 175th Street, both located southwest of the project sites. Within the surrounding area, we also find Public Health Organization on East 175th Street and a supportive housing organization located 2 blocks east of Development Site 3 on Fairmount Place. There is also a Social Security Administration office directly adjacent to Development Site 1. The surrounding area also contains several publicly accessible open spaces, including 2 large parks, the 15-acre Walter Gladwin Park, 2 blocks west of Site 3, and the approximately 127-acre Crotona Park, 3 blocks south of Site 2 and 3. Both of these large parks contain ball fields, playgrounds, and other passive and active green spaces. Highland Park is located at the northwest corner of Crotona Park across the street from Site 1. Prospect, Fairmount, and Admiral Farragut playgrounds are all located within 2 blocks of Site 3. There is another cluster of public open spaces 4 blocks north of Prospect Playground, including the Clinton Avenue Community Garden and Mapes Pool and Ball Field. Site 2 has a community garden called Miracle Garden, located across the street to the west. It is also worth noting that the southern tip of the 718-acre Bronx Park is visible at the top right corner of this map. The surrounding area is well served by public transit and is within a transit zone. There are several bus lines that serve the project area, including the BX40 and the BX42 bus lines, which run east-west across East Tremont Ave and East 180th Street, BX17, which runs along Crotona Avenue past Development Site 3, and BX19, which runs along Southern Boulevard just east of the project area. The 2 and 5 subway lines pass through the southeast corner of the surrounding area with the 174th Street station and the West Farms Square East Tremont station just out of view. The Cross Bronx Expressway, which provides highway access through the Bronx, transects the project area. Development Site 1 is 1 block south of the expressway, and Development Sites 2 and 3 are 1 block north. The land uses in the surrounding neighborhood are mostly residential with pockets of commercial, public facilities and institutions and a few vacant lots surrounding Site 3. The residential land uses around Development Site 1 are primarily 1 and 2 family buildings and multifamily walk-up buildings, while residential land uses around Development Sites 2 and 3 are mostly multifamily walk-up and elevator buildings. There's a commercial corridor located along East Tremont Avenue, a few blocks north of the project area, that features a mixed-use commercial development with ground floor retail. There's also a cluster of mixed-use commercial residential and commercial office buildings to the west of Development Site 1, along East 175th Street, Southern Boulevard, and Crotona Parkway. Along these thoroughfares, commercial uses are typically local restaurant and retail establishments located on the ground floors of low and mid-rise buildings. Much of the surrounding residential area and all development sites are zoned R7-1. Commercial corridors along Southern Boulevard and East Tremont Avenue with an R7-1 C1-4 district mapped along portions of Southern Boulevard, and C4-4A and C4-5X districts mapped along East Tremont Ave. The C4-4A and C4-5X districts located at the northeast portion of this map were established pursuant to the 3rd Avenue, Tremont Avenue corridors rezoning, which was approved in 2010. There's also an M12 district located directly south of the Cross Bronx Expressway in between the development sites. As I previously mentioned, all 3 development sites are located in R7-1 districts. Site 1 is the only site with an additional C1 for commercial overlay. R7-1 districts are mapped in medium density areas and permit an FAR range from 0.87 to 3.44 or 4.0 with quality housing regulations on a wide street. An FAR up to 5.01 FAR is allowed for quality housing buildings with affordable independent residences for seniors, also known as heirs. Within R7-1 districts, height and setback regulations are either governed by the height and setback regulations themselves or by quality housing regulations. Under the quality housing regulations, a building must rise to a minimum base height of 40 feet with a maximum base height of 80 feet on a wide district or 75 feet on a narrow street. C1 and C2 overlays are mapped along streets that serve local retail needs. Typical uses include neighborhood grocery stores, restaurants, and beauty parlors. C1-4 commercial overlays, when mapped in R7 districts, allowed for a 2.0 FAR of commercial uses. And for C1-4 commercial overlays, the residential bulk is governed by the resident district with which the overlay is mapped. And in this case, for Site 1, that would be for the R7-1 district. Now we're going to step through the proposed development site by site. Development Site 1 is located at 907 East 175th Street on the north side of East 175th Street, between Trafalgar Place and Southern Boulevard. Lot 20 on Block 2958 is an irregular-shaped mid-block lot, currently zoned R7-1 with, as I mentioned before, the C1-4 commercial overlay. Development Site 1 is comprised of approximately 5,000 square feet of lot area and is currently vacant. The western adjacent lot is occupied by a 3-story building, and the eastern adjacent lot is occupied by a 1-story building. The development site will be developed with a 9-story new building containing approximately 33 units of affordable housing and approximately 25,000 zoning square feet for residential floor area. The applicants intend to dedicate 12 of these 33 affordable dwelling units to heirs units. The building will rise to a base height of approximately 67 feet and will set back to a proposed building height of approximately 87 feet. The proposed building will include a rear yard, an 8th-floor terrace, a community room in the cellar for a total of approximately 2,900 square feet of recreation space for the residents. Now we're on to Site 2. Development Site 2 is located at 1900 Marmion Avenue on the northeast corner of the intersection of Fairmount Place and Marmion Avenue. Both of these intersecting streets are narrow. Lot 21 on Block 2960 is a rectangular corner lot zoned R7-1. Development Site 2 is comprised of 2,419 square feet of lot area and is currently vacant. Across Marmion Avenue, on the left of this photo, you can see some of the trees and plants of the Miracle Garden Community Garden. The site will be developed with a new 6-story building containing approximately 10 units of affordable housing with approximately 10,500 zoning square feet for residential floor area. Applicants intend to dedicate 3 of the 10 affordable dwelling units to heirs. The building will rise to a base and building height of approximately 60 feet. And the proposed building will include a rooftop terrace and community room on the 5th floor for a total of approximately 1,400 square feet of recreation space for residents. Development Site 3 is located at 706 Fairmount Place on the southeast corner of the intersection of Fairmount Place and Crotona Avenue. Crotona Avenue is a wide street while Fairmount Place is a narrow street. Like in the previous development site, Lot 18, Block 2950 is a rectangular corner lot currently zoned R71. Development Site 3 is comprised of 3,645 square feet of lot area. As you can see in these photos, the lot is currently vacant. Block 2950, Lot 18, also known as 706 Fairmount Place, will be developed with a new 6-story building containing approximately 21 units of affordable housing, with approximately 17,000 zoning square feet of residential floor area. The applicants intend to dedicate 25 of the 21 affordable dwelling units to affordable independent residences for seniors. The building will rise to a base height of approximately 50 feet and a proposed building height of approximately 60 feet. The proposed building will include a rear yard, a rooftop terrace, and a community room on the 5th floor for a total of approximately 1,000 square feet of recreation space for residents. In summary, the proposed development will consist of 3 newly constructed residential buildings at 3 development sites containing approximately 64 dwelling units in total, including approximately 20 heirs units. Here are some renderings of each of the new buildings. This officially concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any at this time.
Great. Well, first of all, let me just say congratulations. Bravo. Nice job. Let me see. We have questions from Commissioner Bozorg.
Also want to say congrats. I just want to congratulate everyone involved in this project for getting it to this point. I think this was RFP'd almost 10 years ago, something close to that. A sign of how challenging it is to develop these smaller sites. It's, I think, a really innovative approach to finance them together, but it's exciting to see it hit this milestone and really hope it gets through the process quickly and into construction and that people get housed in these homes soon. So congrats.
Thank you.
Commissioner Goodrich.
Great presentation. Thank you so much. It was very comprehensive. My question, which I ask a lot, is the breakdown for the units, for the affordable units. And also, I had a quick question about the ones reserved for seniors, if that has the same AMI breakdown or if that is a different, if that's a different structure altogether. So that was my question.
Absolutely.
And let me just give a little bit of background as to why I ask it a lot. Sometimes I've been very excited to see like 100% affordable housing coming through or even more than 30. And what I've learned sometimes when I parse through them is like they'll start at like $80,000 eligibility. So I've learned to ask this question.
I definitely appreciate the question, and I did include some extra charts here. I know it's not the prettiest here, and just bear with me as I try to walk you through this, but we do have, you can see in the bottom table, you have the breakdown of the types of units, heirs and non-heirs, and then the heirs floor area here above. And did I include? No, I didn't. Okay. So the breakdown specifically for the different units is still, I think, a little bit being worked through and finalized. but I can make sure that that is included in the follow-up presentation by the applicant.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner.
Sorry, just a clarifying bit of information too. HPD informed us that they're still working through the affordability levels for the air units, but they'll probably fall between 30 and 80%, but we can ask them to respond at the hearing as well.
The breakdown of the bedroom sizes, is, you know, if the applicant is flexible on that, because there's a lot more studios than, say, like the family ones, which would be 2 bedrooms.
I don't know specifically if they are flexible on this breakdown, but it is something that we can flag for the applicant to make sure they can speak to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Maureen.
Thank you, Chair. Yaffe, thank you. 2 questions for you. One, the first one is, do you know what was the impetus behind the decision to include the AIRS units within a regular affordable building? I'm just curious because you usually see the AIRS units in a separate building, and then of course the affordable units in in a separate building. And I see we mixed them in. I think it's a great idea. Don't get me wrong. I'm just questioning what the thought process was behind that. And then my second question would be to the studio question. I see that in site number 1, where you have a total of 12 AIRS units, you have 16 studios. So and in 3 you have 4 and 5. So my question would be, are the AIRS units intended to be studios or ones, or what are they intended to be?
Thank you for that question, both of those questions. I unfortunately was not part of this process as they were making up those decisions on why they were going to combine them, but it seems like it was an opportunity to make sure that the resources that were available to the non-AIRS affordable units would also be available to something that would be beneficial from the seniors units would also be benefiting everyone else in their communal spaces.
When you say the resources, can you define what that is? Because there's economic resources, and then there's physical social service resources.
The community facilities, the outdoor spaces, of course, these are very small sites, and why we had to cluster them here. So being able to make sure that we had rooftop access, laundry, community spaces, all of those kinds of physical spaces that could be shared, affordable units that are important to all affordable units, not just the seniors. And to your other question, remind me.
The breakdown of units,
right.
Specifically of the AIRS units, what is the breakdown of unit sizes? Is what I'm trying to understand. Are they all studios in the AIRS? Are they 1 bedrooms? Are they a mix? I mean, if you don't have the answer, that's fine.
I don't have anything more specific than this at the moment, but I'm sure that we will be able to get more specific at the next presentation.
I just want to say that I really applaud the fact that they're mixing folks, seniors and other AMI levels, because we all have something to learn from each other, and we all have to be sensitive to each other, and we have to learn to be nice to our elders, and we see a lack of that in society today. And I think it's part of because we have segregated folks. This, to me, seems like a better plan where you have seniors and a younger population in the same building. It just lends cohesiveness to the entire community. So I really applaud whoever thought about this and is doing it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And just one other thing to add, one of the units, they didn't decide which building it's going to be in, but one of the studios would be for the super. I'm not sure if that was going to be an AIRS unit or not an AIRS unit, but they were including, this was just a general breakdown for the buildings, and then they were going to decide more.
I will also state that it's also difficult, it's tricky at times to give a super or a studio, because then you're limited in the person that comes to be that super, because supers with families are not going to come into a studio. So you're going to get a younger super who, I just want to state that because I have had difficulties in developments where I have allocated a super to a studio, and it just never works out for me. So I just wanted to comment on that as well.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Benjamin?
I would second your comments. In my own building, we've had problems because we have a very small studio available for the super, and we've had applicants who really like the building, want to be there, but the apartment is just too small, so it really does limit who can take advantage of that. But my question is, in reading the documents, one of the documents said that a DEIS had been prepared by ESD, and then another one said that no significant impacts had been found. Can you explore that for us and get back to us about what that means?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, this item is now certified. Thank you, Yafit, and congratulations again. Okay, let's move on to the next item, Sarah.
The fifth item on our agenda is a certification of a UDOT designation, project approval, disposition of city-owned property, and acquisition in the Bronx Community District 3. Our presenter is Manny Lagares.
Now, wait a second, Manny, before you start here.
Okay.
I have to note that this is a pretty bittersweet occasion for all of us. Yeah, you know what I'm going to say. This is Manny's final presentation to the City Planning Commission because he is going to be retiring in January after 44 years of service to the Department of City Planning. Manny started with the agency on March 26th, 1979. He has been a liaison to 9 of the 12 Bronx community boards, and he has served as the liaison to Community Board 9 for 35 years. He has served under the leadership of 6 mayors and 8 different city planning commissioners, and has been with the agency for 44 of the 48 years that ULURP has been in existence. During his time at City Planning, Manny was a pillar of the Bronx office working on projects large and small, including Westchester Mews, a rezoning to facilitate approximately 200 units of affordable housing in Community Board 9, as well as helping to shepherd citywide proposals like MIH and Zone Green, the FRESH program, zoning for coastal flood resiliency, City of Yes for carbon neutrality, which we're going to talk about in a minute, and countless others. More than just a great planner, Manny also served as a mentor in the Bronx, helping new staff get up to speed, and has always been willing to offer his expertise and steady guidance, also to me, which I really appreciated when I started, to be able to talk to Manny as a veteran and somebody who knew all of the ins and the outs of this agency. Manny, I will say you will be truly missed by all of us. We thank you deeply for everything you have done for the Bronx office, for the Department of City Planning, and of course for all of New York City. So please join me in giving Manny a very big round of applause. And with that, the floor is yours, Manny. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, thank you again for your kind words, your good wishes and thoughts. And I just want to, what you did mention about the ULURP process. When I came into this agency back in 1979, the process was in effect for at least 2 years. And I started out at 2 Lafayette Street, working in that building. And then I transferred to the Bronx office. And as a liaison to the community board, it's our role just to present to the commission, the ULURP process, et cetera, et cetera. To my surprise, I asked staff, how does this work? And I wasn't getting answers to my questions, but they were beating around the bush. So then I said, wait a minute, let me just contact our central office. And I got information from Bruce Rosen, one of our planners here, retired. He was kind enough to send me a booklet. Remember, at that time, we didn't have all this technology, so I got a hold of that booklet. I learned about the process, and I made it a point to, as new staff comes in, whether it be an intern, new staff, or even staff that's there, to give a presentation, give an overview of the ULURP process. And I've kept that, and hopefully our office with our new management and our new team, as you saw Yafi, tremendous presentation. She just, she brightens up as soon as she knows she's making a presentation. She's happy and ready to go. So we do have a good, intelligent team in our office, and I hope they carry on the tradition of training new staff. Even though we have the academy, et cetera, they come in the first day, I grab them, or I grab them a week later, and I introduce them to the ULURP as well as to the zoning. So thank you for that. So my presentation today is on the Melrose Concourse, which is here for certification. HPD is the applicant, and they are requesting you that designation, project approval, disposition of city-owned property, and acquisition of land by the city to facilitate the construction of 3 new residential buildings across 3 development sites, totaling approximately 71 affordable units plus 1 superintendent unit, and including affordable independent residences for seniors. The proposed development will be situated on the following sites: 404 Claremont Parkway, 1169 Washington Avenue, and 12 Governor Place in Bronx Community District Number 3. The project site is located in the Claremont and Morrisania sections of Community District Number 3. And the 1169 and 12 Governor Place, those are the ones that are located in the Morrisania section. They're within 500 feet of each other. 404 Claremont Parkway is in the Claremont neighborhood. It is a vacant mid-block lot that is bound by Claremont Parkway to the north, East 171st Street to the south, Brook Avenue to the east, and Webster Avenue to the west. This site is within an R71 zoning district. Adjacent to the development site is an existing 4-story mixed-use residential building with ground floor commercial. There are M1 and M4 districts north and northeast of the development site. The site is located within a fresh zone. The 47-acre Claremont Park is 1 block to the west of the site. This is a photo. We're looking south at the development site itself. It's currently vacant and fenced, and it's adjacent to, as I mentioned, a mixed-use building, and behind is a manufacturing use. And this is the rendering of the proposed 4-story residential building with 8 income-restricted units. The apartment distribution is 2 1-bedroom and 6 2-bedroom units. It will have a rear yard of approximately 771 square feet, a 618 square foot rooftop terrace, and a laundry room. 1169 Washington Avenue, which is the second site, is a mid-block vacant lot that is bounded by Washington Avenue to the east, Park Avenue to the west, East 168th Street to the north, and East 167th Street to the south. The lot is made up of 2 narrow rectangular shapes, formerly 2 distinct lots, with 1 lot larger than the other. The site comprises approximately 5,778 square feet, with approximately 45 feet of frontage on Washington Avenue. The development site is within an R71 zoning district, and there are C24 commercial overlays along East 168th Street. Development site is bordered by an M1 district to the west, and south is the Morrisania Special Mixed-Use District. The site is located within a fresh zone. Here is a photo of the proposed development site. As you can see, it's vacant and fenced. This is the rendering of the proposal, the 9-story, approximately 28,272 square feet development with 34 income-restricted dwelling units. The apartment distribution is 6 studios, 8 1-bedroom, 8 2-bedroom, 6 heirs 1-bedroom, and 6 heirs studio units. 8 units will be set aside for previously homeless families. The development will contain approximately a rear yard of approximately 1,328 square feet. 12 Governor Place is a mid-block lot that is bounded by Governor Place to the north, Washington Avenue to the east, Park Avenue to the west, and East 166th Street to the south. It is within an R72 M11 district and within the MX7 Morrisania Special Mixed Use District. There is one C13 commercial overlay along East 167th Street. This development site is bordered by an R71 district to the north, and the Morrisania Special Mixed Use District is located to the south and east. The site is also within a fresh zone. And this is a photo of the site. We're looking south at the site. The proposed development will consist of a 9-story residential building with 30 income-restricted units plus 11 heirs units. The apartment distribution is 1 2-bedroom unit for the superintendent, 6 2-bedroom units, 8 1-bedroom units, 4 studio units, 8 1-bedroom heirs units, and 3 heirs studio units. The development will contain 1,652 square feet of open space for the residents. 404 Claremont Parkway and 1169 Washington Avenue are located within an R71 zoning district. R71 and R72 are medium density districts that encourage lower apartment buildings on smaller zoning lots and taller buildings on larger lots with less coverage. 12 Governor Place is located within an R72 / M1-1 district. M11 districts typically include light industrial uses such as woodworking shops, repair shops, and wholesale service and storage facilities. 12 Governor Place is also located within the Morrisania Special Use Mixed Use District and 1-1 R72 MX7, which allows for light industrial uses as well as medium density residential uses with a purpose to encourage investment in and enhance the vitality of existing neighborhoods with mixed residential and industrial uses. In summary, the proposed actions will facilitate the development of 3 vacant lots with 3 new residential buildings for a total of 71 income-restricted units, 23 as affordable residences for seniors. And the last slide are the renderings of the proposed buildings. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay,
Manny, as clear as always. Let me start with the Vice Chairman.
Manny, I will miss you.
Likewise. Likewise.
Thank you for your unfailing professionalism.
Thank you.
Over these years.
Thank you.
I'm just curious, the Claremont Place, that's a 4-story building. Does that contain an elevator?
No.
So those will walk?
I believe it has to be over 5 stories. Yes. Yeah.
So no airs in that building?
No.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Questions? Great. Manny, well, we will leave it there. Again, we thank you so much for your incredible service.
I applaud you guys.
We will miss you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, let us move on. Sarah, this item is certified.
The 6th item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of a UDAP designation project approval, disposition of city-owned property and acquisition in Manhattan Community District 11. Our presenter is Trevor Lovitz.
Hello, Trevor.
Hello. Good afternoon, Commissioners. As Sarah noted, this is a pre-hearing item which summarizes the public review period to date for Timbale Terrace, an HPD project. It is certified on August 21st and will have a public hearing on Wednesday. Just a quick recap of this proposed development. It is located in East Harlem, Manhattan Community District 11, and covers the entire western block front of Park Avenue between East 118th and East 119th Streets across 11 contiguous tax lots. The site is currently an unimproved surface parking lot for the adjacent NYPD 25th Precinct. There are 2 actions associated with this project: designation of an Urban Development Action Area and Urban Development Action Area project, approval of the Urban Development Action Area project, and disposition of city-owned property, all of which are encompassed in the UDAP action. The second action, which is being sponsored, with the applicants for which are the NYPD and DCAS, is for the acquisition of property by the city for the 75 replacement parking spaces for the NYPD on the 1st and 2nd floors of the building. The bulk of the proposed development is as of right, will contain 340 affordable housing units. Unit affordability is structured in accordance with HPD's extremely low and low-income affordability, or ELA term sheet. 99 of the 340 units will be set aside as supportive housing and financed in part through the city's 1515 program. Tenants for these units will be referred by the HRA among vulnerable populations, including the formerly homeless, chronically homeless, and youth aging out of foster care. The proposed development will feature on-site services for residents living in the supportive units, as well as residential amenity space. Additional community facility space on the ground floor and cellar will include a new home for the Afro-Latin Music and Arts Center, operated by the Afro-Latin Jazz Alliance. On October 24th, Manhattan Community Board 11 voted to approve the application with conditions. These included that the developer conduct targeted outreach in CD 11 to raise awareness of the housing opportunities offered by Tambale Terrace. Important to note here that preference will be given to among 50% of the non-supportive housing units to current residents of Community District 11. While HRA is responsible for referring residents for the supportive housing units, CB11 asked that HRA partner with local shelters and other stakeholders to identify those who have been displaced from CD11 and identifying prospective residents for the supportive housing units. The board recommended the formation of a community advisory board that will work with local stakeholders and government organizations to assist in improving the quality of life on the street. Other recommendations from CB11 centered on local hiring for construction jobs, as well as the permanent positions associated with the development's ongoing operation. On October 31st, Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine recommended approval of the application with conditions. Several of BP Levine's conditions mirrored those of CB11, including local hiring, the formation of community advisory board, prioritizing those displaced from CD11 for the supportive housing referrals, and promoting the project locally to ensure broad awareness of the affordable housing opportunities. Furthermore, BP Levine recommended that the applicants work to develop a unit mix which better addresses the housing needs of both single-person and family-sized households. That concludes the presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Great. Thanks, Trevor. Questions? Commissioner Buzzard.
We'll be curious to hear from the applicant on their response to these recommendations from both the community board and the borough president. Do you know if they've made any adjustments to the bedroom mixes since these recommendations came out?
I can pull up the bedroom mix. I haven't been apprised of any changes to the tentative distribution. I understand it's hard, but HBD will definitely have a firm answer on that on Wednesday, and the development team will be here as well.
Okay, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And yes, we will pick this one up on Wednesday. Great. With that, that's what we're going to do. We will see it on Wednesday. Thank you, Trevor, for the prep.
Good. Thank you.
Sarah, let's move on.
The seventh item on our agenda is a City Council modification scope determination for the City of Yes for carbon neutrality, a citywide zoning text amendment. Our presenter is Niles Klingel.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon, Niles.
I have some good news. And I don't need a title slide for it, but on November 20th, so last Monday, the City Council's Land Use Committee and Zoning Subcommittee voted to approve, the City Planning Commission approved text amendment with two very small modifications. So I just want to highlight the degree to which we worked very closely throughout this process with the City Council land use staff, and the degree to which these modifications are very targeted and detailed and really speak to the strength of the proposal and the robustness with which we developed it with the City Council staff as well as experts in the field. So very quickly, the departments reviewed these two modifications, and we believe that they are in scope and do not require any further environmental review. The first relates to a small clarification we made to accessory uses definition in 1210 of the zoning resolution. We sought as part of this project to codify an approach regarding how to calculate the size of an accessory use for a campus. So a campus is obviously composed of multiple blocks. Those multiple blocks do not count as a single large zoning lot on a general basis. So when you're looking at something in the context of carbon neutrality, energy storage, for example, or a solar array, and you're trying to determine whether it's accessory or needs to be considered its own standalone use, you need to evaluate it across the whole campus, obviously. The zoning text doesn't have clear instructions on it. It hasn't since 1961. We've worked very closely over the years with City Law Department, our partners at Department of Buildings, to arrive at an understanding of how this works in the absence of those clear instructions. We sought to clarify it as part of this proposal. The council was concerned that this might allow some inadvertent new noxious uses. And while we worked to allay that concern, ultimately we agreed to remove this language from the proposal so as not to raise this concern, and with the understanding that it was merely a clarification of existing practice. So we will continue to be able to see facilities move forward. The second relates to ultra-low energy buildings, sort of a key piece of the proposal related to promoting low energy buildings in new development. These buildings, of course, are eligible for a 5% floor area exemption, and upon further discussion with DOB and the practitioner community about the actual nitty-gritty of illustrating compliance with these rules at the time of the application at the Department of Buildings, the council made some very small modifications here. The first was changing a specific phrase, energy use intensity, EUI, which describes the amount of energy a building uses per square foot per year, to a more generic energy performance. And the intention there was to ensure that if energy code changes in the future and EUI as a metric changes, the zoning text does not fall out of step. And the second was related to a requirement in that definition in the zoning resolution proposal that a proposal be analyzed by energy model. This is a requirement of the energy code already, and we didn't want to create any situations where we were requiring something slightly different than energy code. So those are the sum total of the modifications that the council has proposed here. We will continue to work with DOB specifically on issuing any sort of guidance or, if necessary, rulemaking around how to precisely apply for the ultra-low energy building exemption. But I think that this is a really great point in the process, and we're looking forward to a city council vote at the December 6th stated meeting. Happy to take any questions you may have.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Niles. And let me just note that I think you are spot on when you say that the types of modifications that we're looking at here are a testament to how much effort you and the team put in with the stakeholders, with the council staff, with individual members to get to a really good, solid product that people were able to embrace. And I think that's a lot of credit to you and the team, so I wanted to thank you for that. And I want to see if there are questions before we make a scope determination here. Okay. So this may be the moment for us to then say congratulations to you preliminarily, and thank you for all of your work. We will watch what the council does, but what I'm going to do here is do our voice vote that this is in scope. So now I will seek assent by a voice vote to send a letter to the City Council that modifications that Niles just outlined are within scope. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay. We will do that. And again, Niles, thank you very much. Okay, Sarah.
The eighth item on our agenda is a City Council modification scope determination for 534 Coney Island Avenue in Brooklyn Community District 12. The City Council proposes to modify the zoning text amendment to Appendix F, removing MIH Option 2 and adding the deep affordability option, and staff believe this modification is within scope.
Any questions here? Okay, I seek assent by voice vote to send a letter to the council that these modifications are within scope. All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Opposed, nay. Great, the ayes have it. Thank you. Sarah, what else we have on the agenda for today?
Okay, for Wednesday, November 29th, staff have prepared reports for 2226 3rd Avenue and Manhattan Community District 11 and Whitestone Lanes rezoning in Queens Community District 7. Also for consideration on Wednesday is a zoning authorization in Queens Community District 1, the fresh authorization, which was presented at the last review session, November 13th, 3742 30th Street Fresh. I'll note that the following votes for SNAD authorizations in the Bronx Community District 8 will be laid over on Wednesday. That is 4800 Independence Avenue Dormitory, 4671 Grosvenor Avenue SNAD, 680 West 232nd Street SNAD. Those items will be laid over on Wednesday. Also for consideration on Wednesday are SNAD zoning authorizations in the Bronx Community District 8 for 695 West 246th Street, Lastly, for consideration on Wednesday, our zoning authorizations in Staten Island Community District 2, 61 Coverly Avenue, and 51 Cromwell Circle.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And with that,
Actually,
oh, did we miss one? Go ahead.
Sorry, Chair. Post-hearing follow-ups. For post-hearing follow-ups, we have 16611 91st Avenue special permit, which had a public hearing at the November 15th public meeting. We have Shristi here to present a recommendation and available for questions.
Good afternoon, Chair Gorodnik and all of the commissioners. The Department of City Planning staff supports the applicant's proposal for a special permit that would facilitate a development consistent with the height and setback regulations of the special downtown Jamaica district without the limitations imposed for narrow lots on narrow streets. The proposed development is consistent with goals of the special downtown Jamaica district, providing housing and services in a transit proximate area. In addition, the development would provide income restricted residential units pursuant to the MIH program, delivering much needed income restricted housing. That concludes my presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you very much.
Our next post-hearing follow-up, we have 230 Kent Avenue rezoning. We had a public hearing at the November 15th public meeting. We have Lucia here to present a recommendation and available for questions.
Good afternoon, Chair Gorodnik and Commissioner. This is a post-hearing department recommendation regarding the private application at 230 Kent Avenue. The department supports this application, which would facilitate the development of an 8-story mixed-use building with 40 units, of which 12 would be income restricted, with ground floor commercial space at 230 Kent Avenue in the Williamsburg neighborhood of Community District 1. The change in zoning district would allow for residential growth in a growing mixed-use neighborhood along a 60-foot wide thoroughfare Kent Avenue at a location accessible to ferry, train, and bus lines served by nearby current and future waterfront open space along the East River. The site was formerly zoned M31, a heavy industrial district, and was rezoned to an M14 district in 2021 as a part of the larger River Ring rezoning to ensure that intensive industrial uses would not be allowed in close proximity to a growing residential area. M14 zoning districts are light industrial zoning districts that permit a wide range of light industrial and commercial uses. The proposed M14 R7X district would continue to allow the uses permitted by the underlying M14 district while adding potential for new residential units and mixed-use buildings, expanding both the uses able to locate on the site and the ability for more income-restricted units in a predominantly mixed-use area. The department also believes that the proposed zoning boundary is appropriate as it fully encompasses a small, approximately 19,000 square foot block containing 2 lots with identical existing conditions. The zoning text amendment would facilitate the expansion of an existing MX8 mixed-use district, adding an R7X zoning district as a residential pairing to an MX8 district. The text amendment to Appendix F would ensure that future developments on the currently vacant land in the project area provide permanently income-restricted housing if redeveloped for housing. Though Greenpoint Williamsburg has produced a significant amount of housing between 2010 and 2020, this development would continue to provide income-restricted units with MIH on vacant land while maintaining the ability for mixed-use development across the project area in an in-demand and desirable waterfront community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great. We appreciate it.
Okay. Our last post-hearing follow-up, we have 962 Pacific Street rezoning, which had a public hearing at the November 15th public meeting. We have Jordan here to present a recommendation and available for questions.
Good afternoon again. Post-hearing recommendation for 962 Pacific Street. This application would facilitate the development of a 9-story mixed-use building with 150 units, of which 38 to 45 would be affordable, with ground floor commercial space, community facilities, and possible light manufacturing space at 962 Pacific Street in the Crown Heights neighborhood of Brooklyn, Community District 8. Since this application was originally filed, the Department of City Planning has advanced the Atlantic Avenue Mixed-Use Plan, a neighborhood-wide effort to rezone the Atlantic Avenue corridor in central Brooklyn. This plan would modernize outdated zoning that has been in place since 1961. Draft zoning was released in September 2023, and a scoping meeting was held in October. Under both the proposed rezoning of 962 Pacific presented today and the proposed AMUP rezoning, this site would allow for growth adjacent to a major neighborhood corridor. The proposed AMUP zoning district of M14R6A would allow medium-density residential developments on top of ground floor commercial or community facility space, similar to the proposed zoning district for this site of M14R7A. BKO's preference would have been for this application to be put on hold while a neighborhood-wide rezoning effort was underway, and the applicant proceeded despite our guidance. At the public hearing, the applicant spoke a bit about the financial considerations that made them decide to move forward with certification. However, leaving aside the question of timing, the land use rationale for this application is aligned with the department's overall vision for the neighborhood under the AMUP plan. It is similar in bulk, density, and scale to buildings we would expect to see built in this area under AMUP, and generally also aligns with recent private rezonings in the same area, notably 1010 Pacific and 1050 Pacific Street. The proposed parking waiver is also appropriate given the site's proximity to transit. We recommend supporting the application on those grounds.
Great. Fair enough. Thank you very much. Great. All right, Sarah. Now I'll ask you if there's anything else that is pending before us today.
No, Chair Grodnick.
Okay. Well, with that, thanks to you and to the entire team at the department for the good prep and all the hard efforts. Thanks to the commission in full strength today. We will see you all Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.